Welcome back to Creative Excuses, and to take number 2 at Chocolate Edition Honor Mode. You can check out my first run over here where Mira and her party died a horrible death to that menace, Spider-Man. Check out the description to see the mod list, but the main thing is Chocolate Edition, my overhaul and rebalance mod that changes 55 pages worth of content around character building. It is a good time, so check out the description for more details if you're interested. Today though, we're starting our second attempt at the Golden Dice with 2 new characters whose fates were tied up. Sunny, the Shadow Sorcerer, was visiting Sorceress Sundries in Baldur's Gate the day that she was abducted by the Mind Flayers. And Paul, who is a security guard, a mall cop if you will, was there too. In the attack, both Sunny and Paul were taken captive, infected with Mind Flayer tadpoles, but when the Githyanki attacked the Nautiloid ship that they were being held on, they made their escape with the help of a Githyanki named Lae'zel. Okay, wait, a Shadow Sorcerer named Sunny? How the hell did that happen? Sunny is short for Sunblossom, our heroine's chosen name because she has been fighting the darkness within her entire life. She was born to a noble family with a line traced back to the Shadow Cursed lands, and she ended up cursed herself. She likes magic and archery, but not so much her power over darkness, which scares her. So she took the name Sunny and practiced a whole lot of magical archery. Paul, on the other hand, is just your everyday dwarf mall cop. He's a ranger with some minor bounty hunter training, and he has a penchant for 2 weapons, as we'll soon see. His claim to fame, though, is that he is something of an expert with the taser, his chocolate cantrip, Lightning Strike, which briefly converts his weapon's damage into lightning damage and generates lightning charges. Very cool. He fancies himself Sunny's bodyguard now, but we'll see who is really guarding who. Can these 2 combine forces, find a party, and rid themselves of these tadpoles? Can they get back to their normal lives in Baldur's Gate? Let's find out. Before we jump into the story, I want to say thank you to everyone who has supported the mod and the series. Every YouTube membership is worth like 200 views on a normal sized video, and every tip on coffee goes a long way to making this all more sustainable to create. We are currently fundraising for Chocolate Edition version 4, so if you want to support that and see what it's all about, check out the link in the description. Thanks again to Garson Channel and the Truant for playing through Chocolate Edition. Now let's jump into it. Shortly after Sunny and Paul escaped their pods, they ran into the frog lady Lae'zel, who offered to work with Sunny and Paul to escape the ship. Together, they killed some imps and then shortly found another prisoner stuck in a pod, begging for help. Lae'zel was reluctant to help, but Sunny couldn't just leave her there. She passed an Arcana check to learn how the pod was functioning and agreed to help the woman. Nearby, they found a rune to control the squid that controlled the pod, but failed at using her new Illithid parasite's powers to order the pod to open. She tried again, but the console still rejected her. Sunny told the woman she couldn't help her, but Paul stepped up to the challenge and ordered the pod to open. He was successful and saved the woman. But instead of joining the party, Shadowheart, the woman we just saved, had a sense that Paul wasn't actually in charge, and so she just rejected him.
You're not actually the one in charge of this group, are you? No offense, but I need to speak to a leader. Someone who knows where they're going. I'm afraid not. Good luck to you. I'll take my chances alone.
Weird, but I guess if you want to die, that's on you, Shadowheart. Together, Sunny, Paul, and Lae'zel fought their way through the helm of the Nautiloid to connect the tentacles and send the ship somewhere else. The teleportation didn't make things any easier on the ship though, and it crashed somewhere in Faerun. When Sunny and Paul woke up on the beach outside of the ship, they set off together searching for other survivors and a healer. Not 3 steps away, they found the woman that rejected Paul on the beach, and Sunny woke her up this time. I guess Shadowheart recognized Sunny's nobility because she wanted to join the party this time, and Sunny granted it. Something about Shadowheart is just screaming, "I can fix her," in Sunny's head. Maybe it's the bangs. If Shadowheart had landed outside the Nautiloid just a few steps away, she would already be dead because we ran straight into a fight with some little crawling brains. Intellect Devourers. They were killing some tieflings, and we were probably next, so the party jumped in to help. Sunny used a bonus action True Strike and a Zephyr Shot on the closest brain, while Paul and Shadowheart followed up with their own ranged attacks. On the next turn, Paul got the killing shot on the closer brain, but the further one managed to kill another tiefling. Sunny landed the killing blow on the final Devourer with a radiant shot from her bow called Sun-Fletched Strike. The party earned enough experience from the fight to hit level 2. Sunny took her 2nd level in Sorcerer, earning a new spell, False Life. False Life will give her temporary hit points and damage reduction for casting it, making her a bit healthier than she otherwise would be. She also learned 2 new meta magics, Extended Spell and Twin Spell. These are main Sorcerer class features. Extended will let her True Strikes and Blade Wards last longer and thus be more useful, while Twin Strike will let her fire off 2 Zephyr shots or 2 Sunfledge strikes, which will be very powerful. For her level 2 feat, Sunny took something based on her past. See, she spent a summer at a sort of druid summer camp for noble kids where she learned how to make fire and resist temptations and dangerous effects. She learned how to turn into a cat at will, and learned how to summon good berries. The most important of these tricks she learned was produce flame though, letting her coat her arrows in fire at will and letting her keep the shadows at bay with light from her hand, even in the darkness. For Paul's second level of Ranger, he unlocked spellcasting, instinctual spellcasting, a fighting style, and a feat. For his spells, Paul learned Expeditious Retreat, letting him spend a spell slot to dash and create water, which he's never going to use. For his Instinct spell, he took Ensnaring Strike to match his Bounty Hunter feature. He took the 2-weapon fighting style to add his ability modifier to his offhand attacks. And finally, he took Mobile for his first feat, allowing him to move much faster on those little legs, as well as avoid opportunity attacks after attacking a target in melee range. For her second level, Shadowheart multiclassed into Druid, learning some new cantrips like Resistance and Shillelagh, as well as some additional spells like Longstrider, Ice Knife, Cure Wounds, and Healing Word. The party buffed up with Longstrider for the first time, adding some nice movement speed for everyone, and then ventured forth. Nearby, the party ran into yet more Intellect Devourers, but Sunny used her new Produce Flame cantrip to coat her crossbow in fire and blow up a Nautiloid fuel cell for some big damage, leaving only 1 brain left. Paul almost killed the thing with 2 hits thanks to his 2-weapon fighting style, and Shadowheart stabbed it for an easy fight. While exploring the wreckage of the Nautiloid, Sunny found this magical rune that was acting up when she touched it. A man's hand shot out and called for help.
A hand? Anyone?
With a little sorcerer's trick, a good yank, Sunny freed the man, a wizard named Gale of Waterdeep. He was apparently on the Nautiloid as well, also infected with a tadpole in the ocular region, so we all thought it was a good idea for him to join the party in a search for a cure to these worms. When Gale joined the party, he gained a 2nd level overall and a 1st level of wizard, which earned him 3 new cantrips, Acid Splash, Blade Ward, and Shocking Grasp, giving him plenty to do every turn. He also learned a bunch of new spells and gained a 2nd Arcane Recovery charge that recovers on short rest. He quickly buffed himself up with some spells, including Mage Armor and False Life. To the east a ways, the party found a group of bandits congregating outside of a ruin. Paul went to talk with them, but somehow they only addressed Sunny, and they did not like her. Instead, they made a rather violent innuendo, so Gale dropped a big rock on their heads with a magic missile. On her turn, the enemy wizards put Paul to sleep, so Sunny had to wake him up with a shove. She then shot the enemy wizard with her fire-dipped bow and a Sunfledge strike for some decent damage, and Paul took her down with a melee lightning strike. The party then boldly jumped into the hole and found a group of more bandits down there. Luckily, Gale scored well in the initiative order and used a firebolt to explode a barrel of oil and take out half of the enemies in 1 ability. Paul then took a hit from an enemy barbarian and responded with an ensnaring strike to lock the bad guy down. Sunny used a Zephyr shot around the corner to take out an enemy archer, but soon it was the barbarian's turn again. He broke free from the ensnaring strike and used a reckless attack on Gale. Luckily, Gale responded in time with the shield, and Paul followed up with a lightning strike for the kill. Shadowheart then finished up the fight by hitting a Sacred Flame. Deeper into the ruin, the party found themselves in a fight with some undead over some button that Sunny pushed. It was like pushing the button turned on the animatronic skeletons or something. Anyway, the fight was a simple matter of cantrips, and more cantrips. Paul did get his first use of Expeditious Retreat in though, using it as a free action to dash up to the melee skeleton and bop him with 2 attacks. On most of Gale's turns, he used Acid Splash to deal some decent damage because it has 0 chance to miss. Acid Splash doesn't have a saving throw and doesn't have an attack roll. It just does damage. Not much of it, but it still just does it. After the fight, the party looked through the room behind the hidden door that the button opened and found a nice skeleton. Nice skeleton? Who talked way too slow. This skeleton, named Withers, told us he would see us again soon, and for some reason, that wasn't threatening?
Farewell.
Outside of the ruins, the party took a casual long rest before exploring further. Gale told us to
Go to hell.
and so we chatted with Gale and Shadowheart about the plans going forward. Shadowheart was a little suspicious though, and Sunny called her out for trying to stir the pot. No need for that, we're trying to get rid of these worms. After a night's rest, the companions began the day with a buff party using a lot of their fresh spell slots. Longstrider, Produce Flame, Mage Armor, False Life, Good Berries, and whatever else everyone could think of before setting off for an adventuring day. While digging up a treasure chest, Sunny and Paul heard and discussed checking out some shouting.
I hear shouting up ahead.
We should check it out.
When they got to the source, they found themselves in a fight outside of a large camp. Gale threw a firebolt that hit and Shocking Grasp that missed, but Paul came through and killed a goblin on the high ground with a lightning strike and an offhand attack. On Sunny's turn, she performed her ritual weapon dip and then used a twinned Sunfletch strike to miss one target and light up another one which some cheesy hero type took out with a bad spell afterwards. The next round, Gale started showing the power of Acid Splash by hitting 3 enemies at once with guaranteed damage. Sunny took out a goblin with another radiant shot, and by then, the battle looked sealed. Shadowheart confirmed that with a critical hit Sacred Flame to kill a goblin, and with only 3 enemies left, the party and green frames from the camp cleared out the remaining goblins. Unfortunately, we did lose one green guy, a woman named Ramira, who got pretty stoned in the fight. Inside the gate, the party found a grove of druids and refugees. We chatted with the merchant who pointed us to the healer Nettie deeper into the grove. We sold some loot and picked up a nice longbow that can regenerate spell slots on critical hits, and which is more Sunny's style than a crossbow or goblin shortbow. Rather nobly, we agreed to save a young girl from an overzealous enforcement of the grove's no stealing idols being used for xenophobic rituals policy. We managed to convince Kaga, the leader of the grove, with a little inspiration to release the kid. During the conversation, Shadowheart appeared to be in pain and explained that she has some hand disease that glows purple and has absolutely nothing to do with the tadpoles, and it probably isn't contagious. Gale also told us that he too has a disease that requires him to eat magical artifacts. This is one weird group of people. We really do need that healer. Before looking for the healer though, we chatted with Wrath and Kaga. Kaga told us that she was the root of the Rite of Thorns, meant to cast out the refugees. We were a little suspicious of her, so we decided to investigate Kaga. She seems sketchy, and this rite reeks of the same darkness that Sunny finds in herself. Finishing the conversation with Kaga granted enough experience to hit level 3. Sunny unlocked new shadowy powers, the ability to cast darkness with a spell slot, and the ability to cast darkness with sorcery points. These powers scare her though, so she is unlikely to ever make use of them. She did learn a new spell though, up to a level 2 spell. However, she learned Shield instead to help keep her a bit more defensive for the time being. Finally, she took Quicken Spell as a new meta magic, allowing her to cast a spell as a bonus action for a bunch of sorcery points. Very useful in a pinch. Paul hit level 3 in Ranger and acquired his subclass, becoming a Hunter Ranger. For his prey passive, he took Colossus Slayer, adding 1d8 damage to a weapon attack once per turn, which will make his per turn damage incredible. Shadowheart also hit level 2 in Druid, earning her subclass as well, Circle of Stars. She's got a thing for the nighttime, I guess? She also earned her first feat, for which she took Reckless, granting her an additional bonus action every turn at the cost of a -3 penalty to all of her saving throws. I guess she is just a little reckless. Gale hit level 2 Wizard, earning the School of Illusion subclass. With this subclass, he gets the ability to turn an attack roll against him that would hit into a miss once per short rest at the cost of a reaction point, making him much more resilient. He also earned his first feat, and he took Dungeon Delver, letting him cast Knock at will to unlock doors and chests and all manner of things that could hide magical artifacts behind them. With the leveling complete, Sunny and the party found Nettie the healer and asked for her help with the parasite. Instead, she pulled out this wicked looking thorn, so we told her the truth before she stuck us with whatever was on that thing. The reward for our honesty was a bottle of poison to swallow if we started turning into a mind flayer, and honestly, that's much better than the thorn. We also got a quest to find Halsin, the primary healer of the grove, and apparently the rightful leader of it. Halsin was at an old temple of Selûne where the infected were converging. Maybe he was dead, but hopefully he wasn't. Elsewhere in the grove center, we searched around a little and found a hidden chest that belonged to Kaga. Gale opened it with his new knock spell, and the party snuck away with the contents. Outside, we met Volo, the whiz bard, and a nice actual bard who let us show off our brief childhood-taught skills with a lute. The benefits of a noble upbringing and classical education, or something like that. But beyond the bard, we heard some more singing and went to explore, only to find a child entranced by harpies. Sunny used a little sorcery to protect herself from the harpy siren's charming song. When a harpy landed within sight though, combat began with Paul and Gale leading the turn order. Gale used 3 magic missiles to break the harpy's concentrations on its song, freeing the child and preventing others from being turned for a moment. Shadowheart used her action to stab a harpy with her powerful shillelagh dagger, and then used Radiant Dragon Breath for some additional damage, and a Sanctuary to protect the kid from harm. On Sunny's turn, she used Resistance as a bonus action to try to keep free from any harpy's song, and then used a twinned Sunfletch Strike to hit 2 harpies with some chip damage. On the next round, Paul landed a gnarly critical hit Lightning Strike to kill a harpy foolishly standing in water, and then Shadowheart took out another with a solid 18 damage Guiding Bolt. The final harpy fell soon after, and the child was saved. After another shopping trip through the grove where Paul tried some new armor on but hated it so much that we had to sell it back, we read the letter we found in Kaga's hidden chest, discovering that she was receiving instructions from some secretive person through a dead drop in a swamp. Before leaving the grove, the party inspected the wall and found a bugbear assassin lurking about to kill a woman. The party quickly took him out, and then Sunny spent a few minutes looking through the telescope the woman seemed to be using. She saw a dragon, a building on fire, and even the beach that she and Paul had woken up on the day before. Outside the grove walls, Sunny ran into a conversation with 2 people talking to a dying man named Ed. Apparently he was a true soul. You know, instead of a false soul. Everyone there had a parasite like Sunny and the companions, and apparently we are also a true soul instead of a false soul. We told Andric and Bryn to explain the Absolute to us, and apparently we were supposed to rule the world someday. When we asked them why they were out here dying, they said they'd found an owlbear while searching for survivors from the Nautiloid crash. We offered to join the 2 at the cave with the owlbear in it to avenge Ed, or just to keep them from finding out that we were from that crash that they were looking for. When we tried to loot the true soul Ed, we got more than we bargained for by pulling the space gummy out of his head. Gross, and no clue why we did that. After a quick rest, we ventured into the cave with the 2 cultists and found the owlbear. Though a little dastardly, the bragging rights around the court for killing an owlbear were too much for Sunny to pass up, so the party buffed up and Shadowheart started the fight with a sneaky Guiding Bolt. Sunny followed up with a Radiant Shot and an extended Blade Ward. Paul missed and then ran for the high ground where Gale joined him. Brenna, on the other hand, used a command on the owlbear to prevent its next turn, but that didn't stop it from calling for her mate. Now there are 2 owlbears to fight, and this is gonna make a hell of a story. On her next turn, Shadowheart went searching for some darkness to shadow step with and learned that her starry form, Wild Shape, actually casts just enough light around her feet that she can never quite get enough shadows to teleport from. It's a neat trick, but it also annoyed her a little. Brenna landed another command, which was helpful, but then she got clobbered and one-shot by the owlbear from the top rope. The party continued to pepper the owlbears with damage, but the mate actually jumped up to the high ground and smacked Paul around. Before the mama owlbear could be killed, she also managed to put the hurt on Shadowheart with 2 attacks, almost taking her all the way down. Gale used a magic missile to take out the mama and chip at the mate before Shadowheart healed up with a free cure wounds and a potion. Paul used his mobile feat to try and get away from the owlbear without taking an opportunity attack and just barely managed it. Unfortunately, he was still within reach and the owlbear knocked him down, almost killing him before jumping down to target Shadowheart. Shadowheart sanctuaried herself after doing some damage, and Gale helped pick Paul back up and then blade warded himself just in case. Andric hit the owlbear cub, which pissed off the mate, who promptly killed him. And from there, the party was on their own, but thanks to some good magical damage from everyone, the companions soon took out the owlbear mate and put the cub down for a nap in peace. Paul couldn't bring himself to kill the thing, so he just knocked it unconscious. Outside the cave, Sunny and the companions found a goblin ambush waiting for them in the town at the forest's edge. Sunny tried threatening the goblins to get them to stand down, but it only seemed to excite them, so a fight broke out.
Got a set on you, all right. Almost makes me like you.
Despite the goblins' high ground advantage, it was only a few turns for the party to take them out with the power of their magic and might. The party spent the rest of the day clearing out a good portion of the town of goblins, but stopped exploring and backed away slowly for a rest when they saw 3 ogres hanging out in a house. That night at camp, Sunny and the party enjoyed a good night's rest before buffing up in the morning for a new day. Will the companions be able to find Halsin? Will they be able to stop the ritual and the expulsion of the tieflings? Find out next time. Last episode, Sunny and Paul were kidnapped and infected by mind flayers from Sorcerer's Sundries in Baldur's Gate. With a little luck, they managed to escape their captor's ship and found themselves in the wilderness far to the east of Baldur's Gate. They've made a couple of friends along the way so far, but they've got a long journey back to the city to give Leroican a piece of their minds. But first, they need to find this great healer Halsin before they lose their minds to the Mind Flayer worm. Along the way, maybe they'll do a good deed and save some refugees from a xenophobic druid. Let's pick up Sunny and Paul's story where we left off, with a good night of rest and a buff party. With the party reinvigorated for the day, Sunny decided to transform into an innocent-looking cat, like the druids showed her back at summer camp, and scouted around the ogres, hoping not to be eaten. Cat must not be on their menu though, because they left Sunny alone even when she read a book right next to them, in the shape of a cat, of course. They also left her alone when she tried blocking the doors with rocks and chairs. While scouting, Sunny noticed a weak pillar and tried using the Zephyr shot from a distance to bring down the roof on the ogres, but even with the beam collapsed, they didn't seem bothered or hurt. So the party decided not to tangle with the ogres for now and ventured south looking for more goblins, only to find an old lady being harassed by some young men. Apparently, they thought the woman was a hag, and Paul jumped in to protect the old lady. The young men didn't like that though, so Paul and the party had to turn on non-lethal damage when a fight broke out, and they knocked the fellas out with just a few melee attacks. Turns out though, the lady did actually have the men's sister, and she teleported away. Maybe she is a hag? Crap. A little further south, the party didn't find any goblins, but they did find the swamp where Kaga's note indicated she would be receiving another letter about the Rite of Thorns, or something else nefarious. When the party found the large tree the previous note mentioned, they found themselves in a fight with a group of mud mephits and 2 wood woads. Only Sunny triggered combat, so everyone else snuck into positions and fired off early attacks. Gale used an acid splash, but then Sunny realized she forgot her flaming hand this morning and had to use a produce flame cantrip instead of a sunfledge strike for her first attack. A woodwoad spotted Paul before he could do anything, but Shadowheart used a sneaky guiding bolt for a decent 14 damage on one mephit. Once it was Paul's turn, he took out the injured mephit and it exploded. On the next round, Sunny used a consumable ice arrow on a wet woodwoad but missed the attack and rolled low on the ice damage, barely dealing anything. Gale had better luck though, hitting 3 enemies with 1 acid splash for some nice chip damage. Paul had to do some problem solving with an alchemist's fire after a woodwoad dropped some vines under everyone's feet that entangled Shadowheart and himself. The fire surface burned away the vines but left Shadowheart and Paul still entangled and, of course, burning. No matter though, Shadowheart used a big radiant breath from her starry form, dealing great damage and taking out 1 summoned mephit. On the next round, Gale used a magic missile on 1 burning mephit, but didn't manage to get the kill. However, on its turn, that same mephit died to its burning status, triggering a cascade of explosions that dealt heavy damage to Shadowheart, knocking her down to the ground. A round later, a woad killed Shadowheart with a clobber to the back of the head. Soon after, Sunny avenged her with a twin-casted sunfledge strike to kill one of the woads and almost kill another. Paul chopped down the remaining tree with an offhand attack, and that left just a couple of mephits to deal with, which took longer than desired due to several missed attacks, but was over soon enough. By the end of the fight, the party was a little more battered than expected. Sunny used a convenient scroll of Revivify to bring Shadowheart back, and then the party healed up and reapplied their necessary buffs. Gale especially channeled his orb and regenerated a few spell slots for whatever fights lay ahead. Fights like with this succubus, apparently just out for a vacation from the hells. We can't have a devil like this running around, so the party jumped in with Gale's Rays of Frost leading the way. The rest of the party joined in with various ranged attacks and debuffs before retreating to higher ground to hopefully keep the lady at bay. Gale did a good job keeping her movement speed down with Rays of Frost, but a dash and a flight still let her get in range for a Crown of Madness. Luckily, Shadowheart made her save. Soon the battle was over without too much issue, but Paul was temporarily controlled by the pretty devil, go figure, and he actually attacked Sunny before realizing his mistake. Shadowheart managed to finish off the fight though with a radiant bow shot from her starry form, and the party really wasn't any worse for wear. The loot from the level 5 succubus was quite nice though, an infernal robe with an extra armor class, a level 4 fire shield spell, and enough drip to make Sunny's noble background happy. Sunny's going to be very hard pressed to find something better than this. After clearing the area around the tree and getting the hell out of the swamp, the party ventured back to the grove to confront Kaga because she had given herself and the grove over to the Shadow Druids according to the letter that they found. Before confronting Kaga though, Sunny went shopping, buying a few small upgrades like a +1 longbow. The party also buffed up with a short rest, some more good berries, and additional spell slots just in case things got ugly. After all, Sunny was going in there to confront and kill Kaga for betraying the Grove to the Shadows, the very thing that she hated within herself. When Sunny did go to talk to Kaga though, she found herself hesitating. If the only option was to kill her for betraying the Groves to the Shadows, what hope was there for Sunny? A Shadow Sorcerer. Sunny decided she was going to have to think on it, and the party left, going back to the Blighted Village where Sunny could maybe clear her mind a little. Instead of clearing her mind though, at least briefly, the party found another large group of goblins, but this group was torturing a deep gnome on a windmill. The goblin's mind was wide open to Sunny though, and she managed to read it and convince the goblins to scurry off.
We're leaving. What about the gnome? Ain't we supposed to bring him to...
I said we're leaving!
Better off avoiding that fight. Behind the windmill, Shadowheart seemed to have a moment with the statue, and Sunny sensed something magical about it, but neither of them could quite put their finger on what was happening. Our heroine then freed the gnome and ventured on, finding another grisly scene in a barn, an ogress and a bugbear trying to make a half ogre or a half bugbear. Interrupting wasn't the most polite thing Sunny had ever done, but the scene was far more offensive to the party than the interruption was to them, and a fight broke out. Unfortunately, the lovers were both killed in the skirmish, which the whole party agreed was a horrible way to go. From a good afternoon to a grave is just a bit of a bummer, isn't it? If the party had thought a little harder, maybe they could have tried to be non-lethal, but it didn't cross their minds with the angry couple rushing at them. It did appear that the ogre had been eating a dwarf inside the barn though, so maybe they needed to die. Still a horrible way to go though. Further down the road of Sunny's thoughts, a new problem appeared in a puff of infernal dust. A cringy, poetic devil named Raphael showed up offering Sunny and the party a deal that they not so politely declined. No one had an interest in becoming a warlock bound to this devil. Shadowheart tried to goad Sunny into accepting the devil's deal to test our resolve though. She approved of us declining the deal, but it made us curious enough to press her for answers about herself that she had so far been less than forthcoming with. A little inspired persuasion later, and Shadowheart revealed to Sunny that she is a worshipper of Shar, the mistress of the night, and more importantly, the goddess who was the very cause of Sunny's shadow-cursed magic, and the shadow-cursed lands her family came from a couple of generations ago. But nothing about Shadowheart seemed very Sharan except her gothiness, her edginess, and apparent familiarity with the ability to sow doubt. None of that did anything to drive out Sunny's thoughts. I can fix her. And maybe if Sunny can do that, maybe she can fix Kaga too. If there was hope for Sunny, there had to be hope for Shadowheart and for Kaga as well. Sunny agreed to not make a fuss out of the Shar worship, and Shadowheart revealed she was already breaking Shar's teachings by sharing this with Sunny. Sounds like progress already. That night, the party got a good night's sleep despite the wrigglers in their heads and woke up for a new adventure in the morning. After a buff party, of course, they jumped across the broken bridge and journeyed west. One little jump across the bridge though, and Gale got a little hungry for a magical artifact. Weird, man. Just weird. Down the road to the west, the party ran face first into a large-scale raid on a burning building. The fight must have been going on for quite some time though, because it appears this is the same building that Sunny had seen on fire through the looking glass back in the grove. The party quickly jumped into the fight, spread out throughout the turn order once they all issued their first attacks on a lone goblin. Everyone spent the rest of their turns getting into, or at least closer into position, while the Flaming Fist fought the raiders in the manor courtyard. Once it was back to Gale's turn, he started by using a bonus action dash from his previous expeditious retreat to get to the high ground and start throwing out some acid splashes for guaranteed damage. Paul missed his attack, and soon it was Sunny's turn again. She used to produce flame to prepare her bow for extra damage again. One day, she's gonna remember to summon the fire before combat. On Shadowheart's turn, she played support using one bonus action to give Paul a Shield of Faith and some healing, and to give a Shield of Faith to a Flaming Fist. No use having these guys die while there are a bunch of raiders around. On Gale's turn, he landed a nice critical hit Ray of Sickness on the Ogre to poison it, granting it disadvantage on attack rolls, which is going to be nice, hopefully save a fist or two. With Paul's extra health from Shadowheart's healing, he charged into the action and landed a melee ensnaring strike on one of the Drow raiders, which would be some very nice damage over time. Sunny took a look at her potential targets and picked out a Drow raider on the high ground. She used an extended meta-magic True Strike to make it last for 4 turns instead of just 2, and then used Sunfletch Strike to start knocking that health down. On the next couple of rounds, the two sides of the fight thinned each other out, with a couple of flaming fists being taken out by the raiders despite Shadowheart throwing out Shields of Faith. One fist did manage to kill the ogre though, which was an important target to take down. With the ogre down, there were only 2 remaining drow raiders, and a fish managed to take one out with a ranged attack, and soon the party dispatched the remaining enemies, leaving fewer fists alive than hoped, but more than none, which seemed like a victory to Sunny and Paul. With the fight completed, Sunny and Paul earned enough experience to hit level 4. With Sunny's level, she learned a new cantrip, spell, and a feat. For her spell, she took Enlarge Reduce, which would allow her to add an additional 1d4 damage to her bow attacks while concentrating on the spell, something that could be very powerful. For her cantrip, she took Dancing Lights as yet another option to keep the shadows at bay. Dancing Lights would be like a pocket full of sunshine if she ever wants it. For her feat, Sunny took Sharpshooter, which grants her 2 new abilities and a +1 to her dexterity. The new abilities are called Sharp Shot, which is a bow weapon attack that deals +2 additional damage and only costs movement speed to use. She also gets access to Improved Brace, which can be used at will with no cooldown and for a slightly reduced movement speed cost over the standard version. This feat is going to let Sunny attack with her bow twice per turn and is extremely powerful. For Paul's 4th level, he earned a new feat as well and took Mage Slayer because his job back at the Sorcerer's Sundries had him occasionally defending against disgruntled wizards and sorcerers, touching things that they shouldn't have been. Mage Slayer will let Paul make attacks against spellcasters in melee range using his reaction, and because he's a dual wielder, he's going to get to hit them twice when he does so. After the fresh levels, Sunny rushed into the burning building and rescued the woman calling for help from a room upstairs. Once back outside, Counselor Floric, as she was called, asked Sunny to save Duke Ravengard, who had been captured by the raiders. We agreed to do so, and she also rewarded us with the Jolt Shooter bow, an upgrade for Sunny which would allow her to build lightning charges when she hits enemies with her bow attacks. Saving the Counselor granted Shadowheart and Gale enough experience to level up as well. For Gale's 3rd level of Wizard and 4th overall, he learned 2 new spells, Phantasmal Force and Crown of Madness. For Shadowheart's 3rd level of Circle of Stars Druid and her 4th level overall, she earned level 2 prepared spells and prepared Hold Person and Moonbeam for herself, 2 powerful concentration options that can win fights on their own. With their 4th levels and new power-ups in hand, the party took a little short rest and headed back out to confront Kaga and save the tieflings from the haters. Hopefully, Kaga can be persuaded to join the light. If not, Sunny's gonna have no choice but to burn out the darkness. Back in the grove, Sunny approached Kaga and accused her of joining the Shadow Druids. Having been outed, 3 rats transformed into 3 Shadow Druids. We filled Wrath in on what we found out, and he called Kaga out too.
Kaga, have you lost your mind?
But before a fight broke out, we did manage to persuade Kaga not once, but twice, that the shadows are not the solution that she seeks.
When the darkest hour fell, it was us that brought light. Sylvanas demands we illuminate shadow, not hide within it. How was I so blind?
Careful, Kaga.
A moment later, a fight did break out, but surprisingly, Kaga was on our side. After Kaga's aggressive and immediate moonbeam, Sunny used her new Enlarge spell to make herself huge and add some damage to her bow attacks, but only managed to hit the Sunflesh strike. Gale used an Acid Splash and then a bonus action Crown of Madness, but after just a moment, the enemy made their save. With only 3 enemies and what seemed like an army of druids on the party side, the fight was over soon. But everyone did manage to get to try out their new toys. Shadowheart even got to use Moonbeam, which felt a little odd for a Sharin. Maybe there's something more to her. Sunny can definitely fix her. Kaga completed her repentance, stopping the Rite of Thorns and allowing the tiefling refugees to stay in the grove until they choose to leave. As good of a news as that is, though, there's no more delay. We need to find Halsin and get this parasite healed before it's too late. Maybe along the way we can clear a safe path for the tieflings to continue their journey to Baldur's Gate. After all, that is where we're headed to, assuming we don't turn into a squid first.
Need any advantage I can get.
In episode 2, Sunny and Paul fought back against the encroaching shadows with the power of friendship, convincing the formerly xenophobic acting first druid of the grove to give safe harbor for the exiled tieflings until it is safe for them to journey onward toward Baldur's Gate. All on a couple of days' work for a few Mind Flayer parasite infected friends on their own journey back to the big city after being kidnapped by squids. But now that the shadows of Kaga's temptations are dealt with, Sunny and Paul need to find the healer Halsin so they can free themselves from the shadows of these terrifying parasites. Along the way, maybe they can deal with the goblin menace and clear a path for these refugees. With the grove successfully pacified, Sunny led the party back out into the wilderness in search of a little more trouble with her renewed confidence and immediately found that pack of ogres from a few days before. She approached, and they were immediately hostile, so the whole party rolled initiative. Paul led the turn order with an entangle to try and lock the ogres down, while Gale missed and dashed out. One of the ogres surprised us with some magic, a blur and a firebolt, but no harm was done yet. On Sunny's turn, she ran out of the building, dipped her bow in her torch of a hand, and landed a solid critical hit Zephyr shot on one of the ogres. Over the next round, the party kept up the pressure with a variety of attacks, though Gale tried out his new Phantasmal Force spell and found that it kinda still sucks. 1d6 damage per turn just really isn't much if you can't follow it up with the nice intelligence save effect. Paul did gut one of the ogres with an offhand attack, and even landed an ensnaring strike on the wizard ogre, but soon went down thanks to a slam, an acid arrow, and another big ol' bonk. Sunny looked out for her friend and threw a potion at him though, and then Shadowheart healed him up with a spell. Can't have our mall cop dying now, can we? Unfortunately, on the next round, when he felt a little more confident, he got clobbered again with a critical hit and went down, so Shadowheart had to get him up again. Paul managed to use an offhand attack and his mobile feat to avoid an opportunity attack and run away, but the ogre chased him anyway and bonked him on the head, yet again knocking him down. Paul was just having a rough time this fight. Sunny though managed to land 2 big hits on the wizard ogre, and Shadowheart followed up with a kill before Paul could get bonked anymore. The loot from the fight was a dented but still pretty nice magical crown that made Sunny much more intelligent than normal. No wonder the ogre could cast spells. Up a hill nearby, Sunny was just able to see a goblin camp and decided to take another turn as a cat. If an ogre wasn't bothered by a cat, then neither should these goblins be. Not enough meat on the bones, I guess. And look at that, not even a little bothered. Once she got near the camp though, Sunny was forced out of her cat form by an overwhelming mental voice and vision, but she was saved by this kinky D20, and she was able to quickly transform back into a cat before being spotted. Very weird. Anyway, inside the camp, she found a certified horde of goblins, all half drunk. She spent quite a while running around exploring, and the goblins were so unbothered, she just waltzed, or maybe skittered, or trotted right through the front door, unimpeded. Don't these goblins know that druids can shapeshift into animals? Shouldn't they stop every animal they see and assess if they really are an animal? Shouldn't the security be just, like, a bit higher? I mean, I'm not complaining, but, like, it's just so easy. Inside the heart of the camp, Sunny discovered a lot. She saw a goblin get branded right on the face, played the cat and destroyed these musical instruments, found a floating eyeball checking out this drow commander with a familiar looking face, and learned that cats always land on their feet, so they take basically no fall damage. How'd she learn that? Because she smacked a drum like a cat, and this goblin didn't like it. In this creepy cave though, she unfortunately found nothing, even with the help of a produced flame, so she had to turn back into a cat and look for a new way out. She ran past some disinterested spiders, jumped through a gate, and kept exploring. Cat Sunny found a treasure pile past another gate and used her little cat claws to somehow steal all of it, which was pretty neat. Magic is a cool thing when it isn't shadowy stuff trying to consume her soul and the world and stuff. Elsewhere, behind a locked door that Sunny had to quickly shapeshift out of cat form to unlock, she found another disinterested ogre in what looked like a bedroom? A little further still, she discovered a small tunnel she could sneak through. On the other side of that tunnel, she used a few more magical cat pockets to steal a heap of smoke powder barrels and send them back to camp where she will likely never see them again. Yet further down this spooky long tunnel behind the bedroom though, Sunny found a Selûnite moon puzzle, which she not so promptly solved after forgetting the moon phase's order for a moment. On the other side of a secret door that the puzzle opened though, she found a ladder going down a plane or two, and found herself in the Underdark where the Selûnite defenses held true, and killed a Minotaur right in front of her. Exploring a little, she managed to find yet another secret door, and behind it a fancy bit of loot, the Luminous Armor. This medium armor causes the wearer's radiant damage to apply radiating orb stacks, making enemies less likely to land attacks. Though it could have been nice for Sunny, she wasn't proficient with medium armor, so someone else was gonna have to wear it. Maybe the luminous properties of the armor could help light up Shadowheart's dark soul? Sunny explored just a little more, overlooking this big vista, but she got her senses back and left the Underdark the hell alone after she saw whatever this aberration was. No sense dying down here in the dark, is there? From there, Sunny climbed the ladder once more and started the long walk back to her companions to fill them in on all that she had seen. When she got back to the party, she found Gale hankering for another magical artifactual snack which didn't seem to cure his hunger this time. Bro needs to get that looked at. After filling everyone in, the party together decided to take a rest. all feeling a little off after traipsing through the gore of the previous few days, but it turns out that feeling was the command of their transformation coming on. Sunny should have turned into a mind flayer that night, but was saved by this dark-skinned tiefling lady who showed us that she'd saved us more than once already. This dream visitor promised to keep protecting us from the mind flayer parasite, but she wanted us to use its powers. No thanks, lady. We already have the shadows within trying to take us over. There ain't no way we are letting a creepy worm do the very same thing. In the morning, Sunny spoke with Shadowheart, who asked us about strange dreams. Seems like she had the same dream, but she also seems to know more. She told us that the artifact seemed to be what was protecting us from the powerful voice, and maybe from the transformations too. At the morning buff party, Shadowheart decided to prepare her disguise self spell to turn into another female drow like the one that Sunny scouted out the day before. Maybe the goblins' fear of the drow commander would get them all a free pass into camp. So, Shadowheart transformed and led the way in her new radiant armor with a fresh dark dye, and what do you know? The goblins let the entire party right on past without a word. Sunny abused Shadowheart's privilege to do a little bit of shopping at the Goblin Trader, picking up a pair of gloves that would add +2 damage to all of her bow attacks. Very nice. With Shadowheart at the lead once again, the party made their way inside the Sloonite Temple, much to Shadowheart's chagrin.
Let's do what we have to do, then get out of here.
Inside, the drow privilege seemed to wear off, so the companions resorted to a more violent approach, setting themselves up for a big first turn strike. Gale opened the fight up with a mage hand to strike the visible war drum, which triggered combat, and Sunny soon landed 2 bow attacks to mark the start of what was sure to be a goblin slaughter. The party took turns dealing damage, while Paul took turns taking damage. Eating 3 big hits, all with the goblin's Fury of the Small damage, he was almost taken down on just that first round. The next round, Sunny took out another goblin with a sharp shot from the high ground, and killed her third for the fight with a Zephyr shot over the railing. Not half bad. With only 3 goblins remaining, the party soon took out the remaining enemies. Sunny summoned some good berries for Paul and let him heal up, while Shadowheart took the lead, trash-talking the Selûnite architecture. Much deeper into the temple, the party found the warg pens where some goblin children were tormenting a captured bear. Sunny put a stop to that, which triggered combat with the goblins in the room. Gale rolled high on initiative and started the fight with some damage and a successful Crown of Madness on one goblin, which should make that mad goblin attack his buddy. And it was a critical hit. Fantastic Crown of Madness already. On Sunny's turn, she dipped her bow in her flaming hand and then braced to re-roll her bow damage. She then used the Sunfletch Strike and scored her first kill of the battle. Paul was unwilling to attack the child goblins, so one of them made their escape and called in the outside guards, adding 3 new enemies to the fight. A round later, one of the goblins managed to open up the warg pens, adding yet 2 more enemies to the fight, but that Crown of Madness proved faithful and got one of the goblins killed by his own ally. Soon after, Sunny landed another killing blow with a sharp shot and a Zephyr shot. On the next round, Gale landed a nice critical hit firebolt for a kill on one of the wargs, and soon the fight was entirely over. At the end of the fight though, the bear, which had been allied throughout the entire time, transformed into Halsin, a very large druid man, and none other than the man that we were looking for. Sunny's hope that Halsin, the renowned druid healer, would be able to heal her and her companions was dashed, however. Well, great. What are we supposed to do then?
If you want to find a cure, you must head there and discover how the tadpoles are being manipulated.
Looks like we're headed to Moonrise Towers in the Shadow Curse lands, the very source of Sunny's own Shadow Curse. Fantastic. But before we have a chance at that journey, Halsin needs us to clear out the goblin leaders, to save the grove, and he's offered to help. It can't hurt to have a bear or a strong druid with us, right? Halsin turned back into a bear, and we left the pens, ready for a huge fight. As soon as Halsin was spotted by a goblin, we jumped into combat, but before the floating eye could call in reinforcements, Gale blasted out a thunderwave and knocked both the goblin and the eye into an endless pit. However, the first goblin leader heard that thunder and joined the fight, so Gale threw out another Crown of Madness on the goblin right next to her.
Shall be done.
Shadowheart and Paul shortly joined in on the fight. Paul missed his lightning strike but landed an offhand attack, while Shadowheart hit the drow commander Minthara with a nice guiding bolt. However, the Night Warden retaliated with a potentially devastating hold person against Sunny, and even after being hit by 5 different hits, she maintained her concentration. Luckily though, Sunny made her save at the end of her turn, escaping the hold. On Shadowheart's turn, she landed a mythical critical hit Sacred Flame on Minthara, taking her down almost to nothing. And the bloodied bear Halsin cleaned up the kill with a big paw swipe on his next turn. The final remaining goblin was light work. After 3 fights for the day, the party took their first short rest and then proceeded to another room, triggering another skirmish with a few goblins. Paul led the fight with some solid damage, and the party cleaned up the encounter before anything bad could happen. In the next room over behind a door, the party tried to sneak in, but the giant bear gave up the gig and a pretty big battle broke out. After the first 2 goblins took their turns, Gale used a 45% chance of success Crown of Madness on the big bad Dror Ragzlin, turning him hostile to the entire room. That should soften up the entire fight. From there, the rest of the party continued with some damage, managing to take out just 1 goblin. Dror, on the other hand, came out swinging in his madness, though, killing 1 goblin with 2 strikes and then shoving 1 off the edge of the floor down some 20 feet into his spider pit. He did make the save against madness at the end of his turn, but not a bad use of a level 2 spell slot. On her next turn, Shadowheart used a Radiant Dragon Breath from her Starry Form Wild Shape to apply Radiating Orb to Dror and another goblin. Then she missed a Sacred Flame. Classic Shadowheart. Paul killed a paltry little drow with a lightning strike, and then Sunny chipped away at Dror's health with 2 bow attacks for a combined 31 damage that turn. On his turn, though, Dror was quite angry, raging and sending Halsin flying. But it didn't matter. A little chip damage from the party later, and a shield spell to get away from Dror unscathed, and Sunny managed to kill the hobgoblin with 2 more bow attacks thanks to a lucky critical hit. The mighty Dror Ragzlin is down. 1 more goblin leader to go. After we loot the room, of course. With Halsin clunking around with those big bear paws, just approaching the next room triggered a fight before anyone else could get into position. Sunny was the first to strike, dealing a little damage to Priestess Gut, while the rest of the party backed up to force the goblins through a choke point. On the next round, Gale used Acid Splash because he was out of Crowns of Madness. Meanwhile, Shadowheart threw out a Moonbeam and some Shields of Faith to protect her allies. Priestess Gut was having none of it though, and used a yoink ability called the Absolute Will, where she yoinked and yeeted Gale some 30 feet to the spider pit below. Ouch. A couple of goblin archers followed up on the yoink to knock Gale down to 0 HP. Unfortunately, Shadowheart couldn't heal him back up, so Paul hucked a potion and got him back up, while Shadowheart spent her turn dealing some very solid area of effect damage. On Halsin's next turn, he took out the remaining goblin leader with another clawed swipe. Gale went back down a couple more times during the remainder of the fight, but the party cleaned up the remaining goblins without too much trouble at all. Without a leader, the goblins aren't really that much of a threat. Down below in the pit where Gale was getting some beauty rest, we ran into some spiders and passed an animal handling check to set them free. They ran off to fight goblins, or drain goblins, or something. I don't know, but they didn't bother us, which was very nice. After looting the bodies and clearing out 3 more straggler goblins, the party headed for the front door, ready to fight their way out through the courtyard. The victories against these 3 goblin leaders are going to mean nothing if they can't make it out of the goblin camp and back to the grove. In episode 3, our party of questionable heroes raided a goblin camp in order to save Halsin, a renowned druid healer who we hoped would be able to pull the worms out of our heads. Turns out, all of that slaughter was for just a little information and a lead to chase down because he can't heal us. But before Sunny and Paul can venture on Moonrise Towers where they hope to find the source of the power of these worms, they're gonna have to make it out of the rest of the goblin camp and back to the Druid Grove. After the indoor goblin massacre, the party used a few good berries to heal up. They also took turns refreshing important abilities and reviewing their resources. Once Sunny felt like everyone was ready, they headed for the front door, forgetting it wasn't the only way out. When they passed through the door, they found themselves in combat with a certified horde of goblins and a big ol' ogre. Luckily, 3 of them rolled high in initiative, so Sunny dipped her bow in her burning hand and let a twin-casted Sunfletch strike fly for a quick and easy 2 goblin kills to start the fight. She followed up with a sharp shot on the ogre that unfortunately missed, and then used an expeditious retreat to advance a little out of the range of the ogre. Gale then used a bonus action Crown of Madness and a firebolt for some control and damage. When Paul moved into range of a sharpshooter goblin, he pulled even more foes into the fight. He did manage a kill with 2 attacks, but still, his turn made the fight harder. On their turns, most of the goblins either set up buffs or debuffs, or they charged into position. A bugbear, though, attacked the goblin with the Crown of Madness and killed it with a critical hit. On Shadowheart's turn, she started off with a Moonbeam on the speedy little Crusher, a Radiant Dragon Breath on the Ogre to make him less accurate, and a Shield of Faith to protect herself. Soon it was back to Paul's turn. He healed up and then used an Ensnaring Strike on a Sharp Eye Goblin before moving next to Crusher for a hopeful opportunity attack if he tries to leave the Moonbeam. Sunny threw out some more excellent damage with another set of twin-casted cantrips, but only managed to take out one Goblin this time. She did extend a Blade Ward for the fight though, granting herself 4 turns of physical damage resistance. Gale followed Sunny with an Acid Splash and his own Blade Ward. After most of the party's turn, Crusher took a swing at Paul and then a couple arrows were sent his way and soon he was down to very few hit points. Unfortunately, Shadowheart also took a clobber from the Ogre and lost her concentration on her Moonbeam, so she had to spend her last level 2 spell slot to re-summon it, this time on the Ogre. After her turn, a Goblin shot Paul with yet another arrow, knocking him down. With Paul down, the enemies focused a lot of attention on Gale, so he used a shield spell to protect himself from the grouped up enemies. When it came around to Sunny's turn, she threw a potion at her buddy Mallcop and took out a Goblin with a sharp shot. Paul used his bonus action to heal up 9 more health with the Tasty Good Berry, and Gale used another Acid Splash and a Shocking Grasp to take down 2 more Goblins. So far, not so bad. These guys are going down like fodder. Paul soon took 3 more hits, but didn't go down. However, Shadowheart was knocked prone, so she lost concentration yet again, wasting that level 2 spell slot. She had to spend her turn healing herself up and then Radiant Breathing the Ogre once more. Paul then took 1 more hit after Shadowheart's turn, and he got knocked down right before his own turn. Gale used his remaining level 2 spell slot on a Crown of Madness on Crusher, and then threw a potion to get Paul back up again.
Yes, of course.
Paul used his mobile feat to get out of the now mad Crusher's opportunity attack, but was still very vulnerable. Sunny braced to reroll her range damage, and then used a Zephyr shot on the Bugbear for some extra movement speed. Over the next round, Crusher played the Mad Dog and hit his own ally, Sunny had to shield herself, and the Ogre finally missed when trying to hit Gale. Shadowheart used some fancy tricks on her turn to dismiss her wild shape out of her starry form, so that she could shadow step over to Paul where she healed him up with a solid 19 health cure wounds. Though it was crafty, a flaming arrow from a goblin jeopardized all of Shadowheart's work that turn and put her within range of going down as well. On his turn, Paul still only had a bonus action, but luckily it was enough to thin the herd a little bit more. Gale healed up with a potion and coughed up some more acidic chip damage, while Sunny used her 1 true strike for the fight on the sketchy Bugbear so that she could hit her ranged shots in melee range. However, after she landed the 2 hits, the Bugbear still lived with 1 hit point, the only hit point that actually matters. At the start of Shadowheart's turn, she burned with fire at her feet and went down, skipping the rest of her turn, which was not ideal at all, while the goblins kept throwing potions at each other and healing each other. On Gale's turn, he used yet another Acid Splash, which was very difficult to aim, but it paid off and let him kill the Bugbear, finally. Paul returned Shadowheart's favor with a potion to the skull, bringing her back up, and Sunny landed another kill on a goblin with a twin-casted Sunflesh Strike. She also dealt very good damage to the Ogre. When it came back around to Shadowheart's turn, she healed up with a potion and rebuffed herself with a Shield of Faith. Somewhere in the round, Gale spent his last spell slot on a shield spell to defend himself, and everyone was pretty much out of resources at that point, so it was do or die. Sunny managed to take out the Ogre with her bow attacks, while Gale and Paul chipped away at the little foes with cantrips and weapons. The next round, Paul finally managed to take out Crusher, the final of the real threats, and soon the battle was won. It was anything but easy, but the loot was definitely worth it. Sunny took a ring off of Crusher, creatively named it Crusher's Ring, and discovered that it would grant her even fleeter feet. As a wood elf with Crusher's Ring, she had an incredible amount of movement speed per turn, which would let her use Brace and Sharp Shot every single turn if she wanted to, which was just so good. The entire party was pretty battered except for Sunny, who had been protected by her False Life and a couple of shield spells, but that didn't stop them all from looting the whole camp. Gale did have just a few more arcane recovery charges, so he generated an extra spell slot just in case, and the battered group ventured outside of the ruined walls, out the same way that Sunny came through that first time when she ran in as a cat the day before. The companions were almost entirely successful at sneaking out of the goblins' view, but even the ones who were seen managed to dash out of range and just flee combat. The party was much too bruised to get into yet another fight. Once safely in the forest, the party regrouped and trudged back to the blighted village where they made camp for the night. Turned out, though, they had a straggler with them. Volo had followed them to camp. I guess to play merchant for his band of saviors? Oh well, he seems harmless, and a merchant in camp is very nice indeed. While we're off adventuring, he can go find goods and coins so that we can buy and sell from him whenever we need to. Very nice. That night, the drow-looking tiefling showed up to Sunny in her dreams, and probably everyone else's too. She told us that we were on the wrong track trying to get rid of the parasite, but it really seems like this dream visitor knows more than they're letting on. Apparently, they're also infected with the tadpole, and they too want to be free of its influence. So, they want us to go to Moonrise Towers and destroy the source of magic that protects the parasite. Same as Halson said. Alright, sounds like a great idea, Dream Buddy. In the morning, quite refreshed after a hard sleep, the party decided to explore the blighted village one more time before heading back to the grove, so they buffed up and had a look around. Soon they found a basement in the apothecary's shop, but Sunny sensed something more. Something dark. They found a hidden passageway that led to a spooky room full of coffins, but there was still more. A magic mirror and some darkness calling to Sunny from behind it. Before checking the mirror, Sunny checked a single coffin and found a scroll that let her summon a talking closet. That's pretty neat for a one-time trick. After a quick and caring chat with the face in the mirror, Sunny sent Shovel in to startle the group of skeletons and an undead necromancer in the next room. That lets Sunny and the party get a free turn and a bunch of damage on the undead. The party took their turns hitting everything, but unfortunately, nothing died a second death that first turn, and the enemy skeleton wizard threw out a level 4 black tentacles spell, locking up 3 of our 4 party members. Luckily, Gale had a magic missile that was within range and took out the Bone Man's concentration, so Sunny and Shadowheart both managed to move into range and deal some more damage. A few rounds of chip damage later, though, the party cleaned up the undead without much fanfare at all. Sunny's radiant damage really came in handy during the fight, dealing a significant portion of the damage to the Lich. With the undead dead once again, Paul thought Sunny would be satisfied, but she went exploring even more, and she found a terrifying book lurking in the shadows. Once Sunny realized what the book was, the Necromancy of Thay, she dropped it like a potato and destroyed it with a radiant arrow. That only seemed to anger the darkness within, though, and out came 3 different shadow creatures ready to fight. Handily, the party was well equipped with radiant damage, so they managed to burn out the darkness in just 2 rounds. Were these shadows lurking within Sunny's own soul? Did they come from her when she destroyed a dark item of power? Or did they just come from the book? Were they trapped in the book? We may never know. After such a spooky experience, the party decided to get out of the blighted village, hopefully for the last time. They headed back to the grove once more to deliver the good news of the goblin camp's final demise and found a party of tieflings awaiting them. And by party, I mean party. There were gifts and drinks and a drunk bard that everyone loves. Before the party began in full, though, Gale found himself extremely hungry and a little pissy about not having eaten an artifact in a while. Sunny gave him a magical Snickers, but it didn't have the intended effect. So Gale finally lore-dumped about his condition. Apparently, he used to be a goddess's side piece, but he wanted to be something more to her. In the process, the wizard did what a wizard does, and he read a book much like the one that we just destroyed, except instead of shadows coming to life, he got a cool tattoo and the munchies for magical artifacts. Oh, and a bit of depression. He got some real bad depression.
What if?
Turns out it gets even worse, though. If he doesn't feed the orb, that funky tattoo on his chest, or if he dies and stays dead, he will explode like the mythical rune powder that Sunny heard gnomes talk about one time. Not good, buddy. Not good at all. Sunny's compassion, though, won out, and she decided to keep Gale around. He is still a powerful wizard, and for good or ill, he seems to have maybe the most powerful magical artifact of all, stuck to his sternum. Looks like he too is fighting demons, just like Sunny. And who is she to judge a man for the monster within? It isn't his monster, just the monster within him. Just like the shadows aren't her, they're just within her. With Gale's story still on her mind, the party partied the night away with the tieflings in their own ways. Gale's with stories of his Tressum cat wizard that used to fetch him artifacts, Shadowheart with a bottle of wine alone somewhere, probably brooding about how pretty the moon can be, and Paul just kind of standing around awkwardly. Sunny, though, she slept knowing that she resisted the temptations of darkness once again. That is as sweet a victory as the defeat of the goblins. But the journey ahead is still long. They still have to find their way to Moonrise Towers. That is a problem for the morning. Last episode, our shadow-cursed heroine and precious mall cop Paul slaughtered their way out of the goblin camp and made their way back to the Druid Grove to deliver the good news. The road to Baldur's Gate is clearer than ever for the refugees. Along the way, Sunny and Gale both confronted their inner darkness in different ways. Sunny killed some shadows that seemed to spawn out of her soul, and Gale confessed to the group that he is a living and breathing rune powder bomb. But that didn't dampen the mood, and the party partied the night away with the very relieved refugees and then took a well-earned night's sleep. When Sunny awoke, Halsin was waiting in the party's camp, ready for a chat. He congratulated us on our victory and gave us some advice on the journey ahead. We have two options to make it to Moonrise Towers: the Mountain Pass or the Underdark. But the real problem is that, as Sunny knows all too well, the Shadow Curse lingers in the valley, tormenting anything and everything there, turning it into the undead. This is the very curse that lives within Sunny's own soul. She's descended from a few repentant Sharans who helped bring it about a long time ago, and so the curse has lingered in her family for 100 years. After his lore dump, Halsin offered to come with us because he got his own business in the Cursed Lands, and for some reason, we just couldn't refuse this bear of a man. With Halsin's routes in mind, the party chose the Mountain Pass for their journey to the Shadow-Cursed Lands and started the long walk. They passed through the Blighted Village once more, then jumped across the bridge onto the Risen Road and followed it all the way to Joaquin's Rest. Out of curiosity, the party searched Joaquin's Rest one last time and found a cellar down a hatch in this abandoned barn. Exploring further, Sunny happened upon a wardrobe with a secret passage behind it. Very interesting. When the party went down the passage, they found themselves in a massive cave system with a threatening woman.
Answer honestly and maybe we'll kill you clean.
Sunny tried to sneak away, but that seemed to anger the lady who ordered the traps armed. So they're hostile and secretive. Sunny suspected that meant they were Zentarim, merchants and slavers. Gale used his big wizard brain and a mage hand to disarm one of the traps while Sunny took a look over the edge. She spotted a huge amount of explosives and let off a burning Zephyr shot, taking out a bunch of the slavers below. With the threat mostly taken out, it seemed, the party made their way past the traps to explore more. Down below, they found a decent bit of loot, and that the cave went even deeper still. Further in, Sunny found an ambush waiting for them, complete with wolves and a bunch of bad guys. She can't stand slavery, though, and neither can Paul, so she sent in the somehow still around Quasit shovel from that scroll the day before to surprise the enemy. She then led the party into combat by blowing up another oil barrel. For her first turn in combat, she took out one wolf, and then she twin casted a Zephyr shot for some solid damage. Shadowheart followed her companion into combat with a moonbeam on two guys, and then Gale whipped out his classic illusion magic for a Crown of Madness to turn one of the smugglers hostile to everyone around him. Finally, Paul shot out an ensnaring strike with his instinctual casting to lock an enemy down. Unfortunately, not all of the enemies were surprised that round, and Sunny had failed to notice an oil barrel right next to them. One enemy mage let a firebolt rip and exploded the barrel, taking Shadowheart down to about half health, and completely taking Gale down because he was knocked off a cliff that he stood next to like a dum-dum. Thanks to the sneaky moonbeam, Shadowheart's action was already gone, but she was able to use a healing word on Gale to bring him back up. We can't have the human bomb wizard dying, now can we? With her second bonus action, she took a potion to heal herself up. Next up was Sunny's turn, and she let just a few ranged attacks fly. Gale took a potion and then clambered up the cliff as best he could. On their turns, the enemy slavers took turns chipping away at the party's health pools with ranged attacks. Paul returned the favor with another ensnaring strike to hopefully keep someone immobilized. One of the wolves sent Shovel back to wherever the scroll pulled him from, and then Shadowheart tossed an alchemist fire to set up the fire surface. On Sunny's turn, she again used her jolt shooter to pepper a slaver with some arrows. She took out the leader with its twin-cast Sunfletch strike and severely injured another with a sharp shot. Even though the leader was dead, there were still a ton of enemies left though. Gale only had 8 health, so he tried to position safely, but coughed out an acid splash to chip away. Over the next round, the parties exchanged blows, but our heroes managed to thin the herd out a little. However, one greatsword or longsword wielding enemy got up in Sunny's face, so she used her bonus action Fire Shield spell from her infernal armor. Hopefully the retaliation damage will do some good if she gets hit. After setting up the spell, she used a Void Bolt to pull the combatants away so she could use a sharp shot as well. She didn't manage to kill with the arrow, but the fire surface took one of the combatants out soon after. On her turn, the enemy barbarian couldn't make it to Sunny, so she targeted Shadowheart instead with a reckless attack and landed a big 17 damage critical hit, knocking Shadowheart back below half health. Thanks to that reckless attack though, Sunny had advantage on her 2 bow attacks and killed the barbarian before she could do any more damage. Another barbarian soon ran into range though, but unlucky for them, they were within range of Paul, who attacked with a lightning strike and an offhand strike, which Sunny followed up shortly with a sharp shot for the kill. At that point, the battle was all but won with only a few enemies left. When the battle really was won, the party put out the fires and looted the slavers for all they had, convinced they would put the wealth to better use. Though, come to think of it, it was all blood money anyway, so maybe they shouldn't have done this. Finishing the big battle granted enough experience to Sunny and Paul to hit level 5, a huge power spike for Paul specifically. For Sunny's 5th level, she unlocked a very cool level 3 spell called Blink, which would sometimes let her avoid damage at the end of her turn by vanishing from this plane and becoming untargetable. Very cool. For Paul though, he unlocked a ton. First and foremost, he became a level 5 martial character with access to extra attack, letting him strike twice with his action. However, thanks to his 2-weapon fighting style, he can also now attack twice with his offhand weapon, allowing him to attack up to 4 times per turn now. Additionally, he unlocked a new instinctual spell. He chose an ice knife variant that works like a weapon attack to trigger extra attack, but it also comes with the utility of making a nice ice surface. Very powerful. Finally, Sunny and Paul's cantrips all deal more damage now, including Sunfletch Strike, Zephyr Shot, and Lightning Strike. After leveling up, Sunny did try out her new Blink spell and quickly found out that using it outside of combat basically left her stuck in the other plane perpetually. Very weird, and considering that lasts all day, that is not a great sign. Once back outside Joaquin's Rest, the party refreshed their spell slots or sorcery points or whatever else they could before venturing on past the ruined mansion. Not far from the mansion, a dragon flew overhead and they found themselves watching Gith Yankee and a terrifying red dragon slaughter some flaming fists on a bridge, likely soldiers coming to Joaquin's Rest to search for the missing Duke. While the party stood there watching though, Lae'zel, that mean frog lady from a week or so, ran up to the other Gith. Paul went down to see what was going on while his friends accompanied in spirit. Lae'zel smarted off to the apparent leader of these Gith, seemed to piss them off, and then got herself killed with a hold person and a critical hit shocking grab. So much for her, I guess. From their vantage point, the party joined the combat and Gale reacted first. He used a Crown of Madness on Baretha, the fighter commanded to kill Lae'zel, and landed the 55% chance. Man, this spell is lucky. Baretha then immediately turned on her own companion and landed a nice 20 or so damage and wasted a Misty Step. Unfortunately, she made her save against the spell at the end of her turn. Paul was up next and he landed a huge critical hit lightning strike with his first attack for 29 damage. Then he used a single offhand attack before running away and throwing his first ice knife, hoping to prone the Gith. He forgot, however, to attack twice with his offhand, so he could have done even more damage. On her turn, Shadowheart of course missed, and then chose to hit with a Moonbeam instead and scored a kill. On Gale's next turn, he used another Crown of Madness on Baretha and lucked out once again. He drove her mad, and Baretha immediately clobbered her ally with a single attack. Paul then moved in and used 4 melee attacks on one of the Battlemaster archers. He didn't get the kill though, and neither did Sunny, and that archer made Paul pay for it with 2 massive hits. Baretha's madness then drove her to attack Paul this time, and she took him down. Sunny did manage to kill the archer, and Shadowheart picked Paul up with a healing word so that he could dash out to safety. Even though Baretha was quite injured, she Misty Stepped into the thick of the party and about killed Shadowheart with 2 attacks. If Gale hadn't managed to hit her with those 2 Crowns of Madness, this fight likely would have been a bloodbath in the other direction. Sunny managed to finish her off though with a True Strike and a Sunfletch Strike. With the enemy Gith raiding party dead, Sunny performed her normal ritual and looted the bodies. On Baretha, she found a magical map that her sorcery let her understand. It led to the very Gith Creche that Lae'zel was seeking out. It was in the mountain pass in a temple. Finishing the battle granted Gale and Shadowheart enough experience to hit level 5, earning their own power spikes. Shadowheart took a 4th level of Druid, learning a new cantrip, which was Thorn Whip, which is a bonus action that can pull enemies toward her. She's got 2 bonus actions, so that's going to be pretty strong. She also earned her 2nd feat. She took Resilient Constitution, adding +1 to her Constitution score and giving her proficiency in con saves. The extra con will also give her more hit points, while the proficiency is going to make her concentration saves much better, given her reckless feat reduces those same saves by 3. For Gale's level, he took a 4th level in Wizard and learned a new cantrip, True Strike. He also learned 2 new Wizard spells, Dark Vision and Gust of Wind, which he's never going to use. Like Shadowheart though, he also earned a new feat for which he took Zealot, granting him a single Channel Divinity charge that recharges on short rest, and a reaction ability that will use that charge, which is going to allow him to channel Mystra's Might to maximize any damage he deals. He still seems pretty devoted to his ex, and she sometimes rewards that with a big burst of magical damage. With the party freshly powered up, they crossed the nearby bridge and continued their long walk to the Shadow-Cursed lands. Though darkness is ahead, hopefully there's some light there too. Sunny is going to need it. Last episode, our heroes completed their last journey through the wilderness, towns, and temples around the Druid's Grove. He cleared out some slavers hiding beneath Joaquin's Rest and took down some Githyanki soldiers blocking the Risen Road on their way to the Shadow-Cursed lands, where their quest to remove some Mind Flayer parasites is taking them next. With the way clear, the heroes are on their way to the Mountain Pass, the hopefully safer overland route to the Shadow Curse. After a long walk, the party eventually wandered into the Mountain Pass region and soon found a woman named Lady Esther tucked up against the cliffside. She pointed out a temple to us in the distance, and to Sunny, what looked more like a temple of Lathander, the god of light. Lady Esther told us it was actually the home of a Githyanki creche, a sort of breeding ground for Gith. This was likely the very place that Lae'zel was looking for, and which she died for on her journey here. Lady Esther told us of her quest to buy or steal a Githyanki egg from them on behalf of the Society of Brilliance, a group of scholars in Baldur's Gate. Though against her better judgment, Sunny agreed to try and acquire an egg for their experiment to prove that Gith aren't inherently violent creatures. After all, if that could be proven, then maybe Sunny could hold firm to her own ideas about herself and her Shadow Curse. Sunny would do almost anything to prove that the Shadow Curse within didn't automatically make her evil. Come to think of it though, maybe stealing an unborn Gith child would prove the exact opposite. While talking with Lady Esther, Sunny sold some of her recent loot for some good coin and stocked up on a couple of supplies. She also made sure Paul was well equipped with a new necklace that would maximize his healing taken, and a pair of boots that would give him additional movement speed when dealing elemental damage, like with his lightning strike. After the shopping spree, the party made their first camp in the Mountain Pass, and Sunny spent a moment dyeing her night clothes to be a little bit more comfortable. After an evening of rest and relaxation, the party woke up to the warm lighting of the Mountain Pass once again. Sunny was curious about the Githyanki egg, of course, but she was even more curious about this temple of Lathander. It looked extremely grand from their vantage point over the cliff, and there had been rumors of a temple which held the famous blood of Lathander, an artifact of the god's very own blood. Maybe the god of light's blood, or the artifact which held it, could be used to burn out the shadows within. She just had to explore it. With a lucky push, Sunny managed to break a stuck pulley free for a sort of zip line. The party grouped up on the ledge, except for Shadowheart, who stayed behind just in case. When Sunny, Paul, and Gale reached the bottom of the pulley system, they found themselves in combat with a big group of what looked to them like absolutists. Shadowheart saw something wasn't right and used the pulley to get them out of dodge as fast as she could. Party safe once more, everyone readied themselves for combat and went back down. Paul rolled well on the initiative order and cast a spike growth to hopefully slow down the enemies. He then landed a nice critical hit offhand attack on the nearest absolutist. Gale thought about using a Crown of Madness, but the cultist seemed very resistant, so he just coughed out an Acid Splash instead. The first cultist to move burned Paul with a 15 damage firebolt, and then Sunny landed a sharp shot but missed her Sunflesh Strike. Shadowheart used a starry map from her studies of the skies the night before, and landed a gnarly 35 damage critical hit on one cultist. That is so much better than her usual first miss. She then hit a Thorn Whip and used a Shield of Faith on herself. Sunny took fire from the cultist, but Shadowheart really took fire in the form of 3 scorching rays which almost killed her in one go. On Paul's turn, he unleashed a flurry of strikes on the melee cultist, but didn't manage to get the kill. Gale really wanted that cultist raider down though, so he used a level 3 magic missile. Unfortunately, it didn't kill, and neither did his shocking grasp. Before the bad guy could go again though, Sunny took him out with a shot from Jolt Shooter. She then coated her weapon in an oil of accuracy and landed a Sunflesh Strike on a raider, which Shadowheart followed with 2 Thorn Whips to kill. The next round, Paul almost got himself killed on his own spike growth. He healed up, and then he used an ice knife hoping to prone a cultist. Over the next couple of rounds, the party chipped away at the enemy health pools while they chipped back. Paul's Mage Slayer feat proved valuable in this fight as the enemies often cast spells, and he was able to strike at them with both weapons whenever they did. Sunny eventually landed a nice critical hit and a sharp shot to get a kill, while Paul's 4 attacks resulted in another kill just a moment later. With only one enemy left, Gale threw a firebolt out and prayed for some good damage. Mystra responded and made the firebolt deal 22 damage. Not bad. Soon the party killed the final cultist. Those guys were tough though, and they did some real damage. That does not bode well if Moonrise Towers is crawling with these guys. They are much more powerful than the goblin cultists. With the battle over, the party moved closer to the temple and then took a quick rest and healed up with a few good berries. Around the corner of the temple, Sunny saw a grisly scene play out between a few Gith and halfling cultists.
No, I'm not going in there. I won't.
Once the Gith escorted the remaining cultists inside, the party tried to follow, but Gale couldn't knock this door open. However, there was an open window, so the party clambered inside, only to find a drunk, Jack Sparrow-sounding kobold.
What do you mean, too drunk? It's not possible.
Who passed out right in front of us. The party ignored this one, but in the room beyond found a horde of drunk and hostile kobolds. Given how drunk they were, the battle was over quickly because they turned out to be explosive, actually. Quite a bummer for them that they all went from partying to dead, but they did choose it. They did not have to attack us. Once the kobolds were dealt with, the party found a way upstairs to continue exploring and wandered into a room full of grimishkas, a bunch of wild magic rabbits, essentially. Gale smartly decided to sit this fight out and hid behind a corner. And Shadowheart even turned into a deep breathé so that she wouldn't set off their wild magic with any of her tricks. Sunny triggered the magic rabbit's ambush, and Shadowheart blocked the door so that Paul actually had to shoot with his bow instead of slash with his swords. One of the Grimishkas landed a big critical hit on Sunny and took out her false life, making her much more vulnerable. Shadowheart managed to deal incredible damage though, hitting 4 magic rabbits with a charge for great damage, but no kills. Sunny managed to take one out and heal up a little bit, but during that round, 3 Grimishkas knocked Shadowheart out of her horned form, so she had to attack with a dagger. Sunny also took several big hits, almost going down, but she did score another kill. Paul made it into the room though, and put his 4 attacks to good work, taking down several Grimishkas, and soon the pests were gone. They were surprisingly threatening though. Exploring the room that the Grimishka nest occupied was well worth it though. Gale and Sunny read a few books in locked cases that mentioned the blood of Lathander. It really was here, and that sparked some hope in Sunny, so she set off exploring more. She and the party found a broken but beautiful stained glass floor with depictions of the previous leaders of the monastery. Just past the beautiful stained glass floor, Paul noticed a false wall with a lock, and Gale used his formidable ability to knock to open it up. Behind that wall, Sunny found a note saying that the blood was safely locked away. Sunny was ecstatic. Maybe she could find the holy artifact, and maybe it would push the shadows out. She took the note and the sun star-shaped item, hoping that it was the key to getting the blood. Elsewhere at the temple, the party found their way down the cliffside and found a genie guarding a treasure chest. Very unexpected, but Sunny isn't one to pass up a mysterious treasure chest on a cliffside guarded by a genie, so she attacked before the genie could spot her. The rest of the party joined in and took out the genie before anything could really go wrong, especially after the genie wasted its only turn on a dash of all things. Can't this thing fly? I do wonder if we set the genie free by killing it, or if we doomed it to some horrible afterlife. All for a pair of gloves that we're never going to make use of. Unfortunate. Anyway, the party found another set of vines leading further down the cliff and to what seemed like a mysterious door into the monastery. If the Gith were beyond this door, this could be quite dicey, so the party buffed up, unlocked the door, and ventured inside toward whatever threats await.
Your curiosity is getting the better of you. Do not let it. Stay away from the Githyanki.
Shadowheart took the lead though, disguising herself with some trickery magic and then shadow stepping deeper into the cave. Maybe she could just pop up as a Gith and everyone would just accept that she's there? Another shadow step and a jump and she was in. The real Gith did just accept her and she passed inside without issue. She even managed to trade with one of the traders inside. She sold some additional loot and tried to barter for a powerful short sword, the knife of the Undermountain King. It would be perfect for Paul, who was still rocking an unenchanted short sword and scimitar. Her persuasion skills were lacking though, making everything just a bit too expensive, so she signaled for Sunny to come with a little tingle from the parasite's telepathy. Sunny didn't think very hard and just jumped in a line of sight of the Gith without sneaking. Luckily, she successfully persuaded the Gith to let her bring news of the Nautiloid crash and Mind Flayer threat. That quick thinking saved her life for sure, and she was allowed to pass by without issue. With her +5 to persuasion, Sunny managed to barter for the Knife of the Undermountain King, Lorethian's Wrath, and a +1 short sword for Paul, all with a little cash left over to buy a couple of big healing potions. Sunny bought Lorethian's Wrath, a lightweight longsword suitable for use with her elven dexterity, just in case she ever needed to hit something up close. Paul, on the other hand, got the juicy new weapons. Shadowheart and Sunny then set off exploring the creche and temple together, just wandering around. They eventually signaled for Paul and Gale to join them, and somehow the Gith still weren't bothered. Now to find the blood of Lathander. Last episode, our party of heroes arrived in the mountain pass on the way to the Shadow-Cursed lands and discovered a temple of Lathander with a Githyanki creche inside of it. Against the artifact's wishes, Sunny led the party inside to infiltrate because she and Gale found evidence that the blood of Lathander, a powerful artifact of the God of Light, may rest inside somewhere. Sunny hopes that if she finds the blood, it can push the shadows out of her own soul. But can the party escape the dangerous creche with their lives? Let's find out. With the whole party safely in the creche now, Shadowheart led the way disguised as a Gith. She saw a training room where an instructor beat a young Gith. She also had a chat with two people who pointed the way to the creche's leader. Shadowheart even found a strange tentacular device in a doctor's office, which just looked gross. Nearby, though, she stumbled into a room with a shallow acid pool. Talking with one of the guards, Shadowheart learned that this was the room with the Githyanki egg in it that Lady Esther still wanted. Shadowheart shadow-stepped up to a ledge and then spoke with the egg's caretaker. He was rather defensive about the egg, so Shadowheart asked what would happen if the egg didn't hatch soon. Apparently, it would be destroyed.
She will say it's a weakling.
She took a risk and tried to persuade the caretaker to give her the egg so she could watch over it and keep it safe from those who would destroy it. It took a little inspiration, but she managed to convince the man that she would take the egg and raise it into the greatest Mind Flayer slayer of the entire race. And with that, Shadowheart was able to take the Githyanki egg without raising any alarms. To the rest of the Gith, it would seem as if a weakling egg was purged and their race was strengthened. That night at camp, in a tucked-away corner of the creche, Shadowheart filled Sunny in on the egg situation, and that made Sunny's guilt go away. Of course, she had agreed to do what could have been a terrible thing just to prove that she herself was not terrible, but it turned out she was saving an unborn Gith. What's the harm in that? Maybe the kid will have a better life with the Society of Brilliance than here at the creche, where instructors seem to beat their students. In the morning, the party performed their usual buffing ritual with 2 additions. Shadowheart dressed back up as a Gith with her magic, and everyone passed around helpful elixirs. Sunny anticipated trouble would be brewing in the creche in no time at all when they went poking around for the blood of Lathander. Before that, Sunny took one last shopping trip with Jira to stock up on some more healing supplies. The party then set out for the captain of the creche's office, hoping to find a way deeper into the temple without arousing suspicion. However, they stumbled into an argument between the captain and the Gith Inquisitor.
Do as she says. She remains your Kithrak. For now.
Well, that was passive-aggressive. After the argument ended, Gith Shadowheart led the way and talked with the captain. She requested an audience with the Inquisitor about the Mind Flayer threat, but in the conversation, the captain passed a perception and insight check, realizing that we have the artifact they are looking for. Uh-oh. Shadowheart tried lying her way out of it, but failed miserably. Instead of turning over the artifact, a battle broke out, and it started off horribly. Everyone rolled middling on their initiative, and before the party could go, the captain used a fear spell on everyone and managed to get Sunny, Shadowheart, and Paul all in one go, so they dropped their weapons and ran. Only Gale managed to keep his composure and his turn. For his turn, he had to be smart, so he picked up all the weapons off the ground, and then he dropped 2 smoke powder bombs from his pockets. He used an expeditious retreat to run away, and then a wall of fire in the middle of the room to detonate the bombs and hit a wolf at the same time. It was a clever turn, but it didn't break the captain's concentration, unfortunately. But he still had a bonus action, so he took a potion of speed and threw out a level 3 magic missile. Unfortunately, the captain still made all of her saves again, so the rest of the party was still turnless. One of the wolves died to the wall of fire over the next round, but the captain's next turn, she Misty stepped into range and hit Paul and Sunny both with a burning hand. Paul then ran away, still fearful, straight into the wall of fire and went down. Sunny, though, did make her save against Fearful, so she had a turn. Gale set up for her with level 3 sleep spell to put the captain to sleep for a guaranteed critical hit, and Sunny let a twin Zephyr shot go at point blank range to almost kill the Kithrak and to deal a little damage to the crossbowman across the room. The captain did not die though, so Sunny had to take a chance on a point blank sharp shot, but she missed, so she extended the blade ward to last for 6 turns of physical damage resistance just in case. However, Gale still had a second action from his speed potion though, so he used a true strike on the captain and threw a firebolt at her which hit her for 17 damage and took her out. The fight wasn't over yet though. Shadowheart used the Thorn Whip to pull a Gith into the wall of fire for a kill, and then the enemy mage knocked Gale's concentration down. Sunny came through though and killed the enemy mage in 1 turn, and so the only thing left was the wolf. Shadowheart blasted it with some Radiant Dragon Breath, and then Sunny cleaned it up. That was a very scary fight. That fear spell could have doomed the entire party in one go. After looting the room, the party healed up and re-equipped all of their weapons. They also took a short rest to regenerate a few of their abilities as much as possible. When the companions were feeling good again, they opened the door and ventured onward toward the Inquisitor, who seemingly invited them in?
Make haste. We have business to conduct.
He must have been pretty inviting as well, because he watched Sunny run around the room inspecting things, looking for any sign of the blood of Lathander. Instead, she found a bunch of other useful or expensive loot that she made sure no one saw her take. She did notice some statues though that seemed like a puzzle, so she greased them up and rotated them into place based on the rising and setting sun. When the puzzle was complete, a secret door revealed itself. Perfect. The problem was Sunny's curiosity got the better of her, so she decided to speak with the Inquisitor, knowing full well it could turn into another fight. Before she did that though, the party quickly equipped a few of the new items. Gale got a necklace that would add his intelligence modifier to his cantrips, and Sunny put on the gloves of Belligerent Skies to add a little thunder damage to her attacks. She also put on the strange conduit ring to add 1d4 psychic to her weapon attacks if she was concentrating on a spell. If she manages to get all of her buffs up and running, she's going to be dealing quite a lot of damage with her bow.
Interesting.
Finally though, she talked with the pretentious Inquisitor, who asked us about the artifact that we carry. He demanded we give it to him, but we said we can't because it protects us from the dark. Sunny wishes it protected her from the darkness within. The Inquisitor did not like that answer though, so he made a threateningly bad pun and a battle broke out. 3 of the party rolled high on initiative, so Gale went first with his classic move, a Crown of Madness. He managed to land it on one of the Gith, but the Inquisitor used a legendary action to summon a floating psionic blade in response. Not good. Gale then used an acid splash, and the Inquisitor summoned another one. Paul went next, attacking Wargaz with an ensnaring strike but missing, and then a lightning strike for some good damage. His first offhand attack was parried, but his second struck true. Sunny was up next, so she dipped her sword in fire by accident instead of her bow, missed a sharp shot, and then hit both attacks with a twin-casted Sunfletch strike. Not the best first turn, but not terrible. At least, not bad until Gale's Crown of Madness completely backfired. Shadowheart was the madman's closest target, so he ran up and landed a 48 damage critical hit on her for a one-shot takedown. That is so bad. Later that round, one of the Inquisitor's psionic swords finished the job and killed Shadowheart before she even had a chance to contribute. Gale was up next, and he was going to have to make this turn count. So he coughed out an acid splash on 2 enemies and then tried for another Crown of Madness. He landed it, but ended up surrounded by 2 more swords. Hopefully this crown doesn't get another ally killed. For Paul's turn, he healed up with a potion and then landed 2 attacks on Wargaz for a total of 27 damage. Not bad, Paul. On Sunny's turn, she attacked the Ardent and killed them with a sharp shot and a Sunfletch strike. She then used a quicken spell to cast Blink on herself, potentially making her immune to damage at the end of her turns for the rest of the battle. But something weird happened. It was almost like Sunny could feel the timelines split when she did that, like she blinked into another multiverse. Or something odd. Anyway, over the next round, Gale shielded himself to avoid some damage. Paul ate some damage from a crossbowman and psychic rend, and then he finally got to go again. Paul healed up once again, missed an attack, and then landed a nice critical hit on Wargaz. Gale once again used the Crown of Madness and Acid Splash to chip away at Wargaz's health. Sunny teleported out of her blink, away from the many swords, and braced herself for extra damage. She also set up a True Strike on Wargaz and a second Gith to give herself advantage, and then let a Sunfletch Strike do it. Wargaz was down to just 4 hit points, so she attacked with a Sharp Shot, but he parried it, taking only 1 damage. Before Paul's next turn, Wargaz smacked him with his greatsword once to take him down, and then a second time for the critical hit and the kill. Crap. Sunny did manage to take Wargaz down though on her next turn with her last sorcery point and a twinned spell, and then she blade warded and ran out of range temporarily. Gale used his True Strike for the fight to gain advantage, and then firebolted a rival mage for 19 damage. The Mad Gith came in handy though and cleaned up that kill. Sunny chipped away at the Gith Archer's health, and Gale joined in with a firebolt. Gale killed the Archer on his next turn with some acid, and there was only 1 Gith left. Sunny and Gale dumped all of their damage into her. Gale, of course, missed, and Sunny almost died to a series of attacks, but managed to live thanks to a shield spell. Eventually, Sunny actually had to use an invisibility potion to move out of range and hit the Gith with a Sunfletch Strike from range. On Gale's next turn though, he used a sleep spell, and that guaranteed Sunny could get the kill with a bolt of light straight to the face. Terrifyingly, when Sunny finished the battle, Vlaakith, the queen of the Gith herself, appeared rather menacingly. The queen told us to kill the person within the artifact, which is apparently the last resort against the return of the Illithid Empire. You mean you want me to kill the person who talks to me and protects me with this artifact? The one who protects me from the Illithid trying to grow inside my brain, and they're also the last resort against the Illithid Empire? How about... At that moment, Sunny got a splitting headache as 3 timelines converged. In the first timeline, the one she just lived through, she killed Wargaz and the Gith. In the second timeline, Wargaz killed the entire party. And in the third timeline, Sunny's wrath wiped the floor with Wargaz and his Gith in short order. But the damage was done. The timeline where Sunny and the whole party died changed something. But Sunny decided to continue on in the name of that first timeline, where honor still remained.
Something good here, I hope.
Last episode, a weird temporal anomaly resulted in Sunny and Paul losing their honor, but the journey goes on. Inquisitor Wargaz is dead, and Vlaakith, the Dread Queen of the Gith, has told us to go inside the Astral Prism and kill someone, likely our dream visitor who protects us from the Absolute's influence. So how about no? How about we just make our way through that secret door Sunny unlocked while looking around for the blood of Lathander? After defeating Wargaz and resurrecting the party, Sunny led the companions out of the Inquisitor's chamber, down the secret tunnel, and into the heart of the temple. That temporal anomaly must have messed with things here too though, because there was some blood on the ground and the party felt like they had fought a strange paladin of Lathander here, but couldn't remember. When the party rested that night, Sunny even found the blood of Lathander in her backpack, so she equipped it. It looked sick, glowing on her back with the light of the God of Light. But she couldn't feel any change within herself. The shadows were still ever present as they always had been. Is there anything that can push the shadows out of Sunny's own soul? After their long rest, the party buffed up and started the potentially very dangerous journey back out of the creche. They passed by the entrance to the Astral Prism, still completely ignoring Vlaakith's order to enter it, hoping they wouldn't find an army of Gith awaiting them outside. After checking the bodies for loot once more, the party snuck up on the merchant and her goons ready for a fight. Sunny led the way with a sneaky Sunfletch Strike and Sharp Shot before the rest of the party joined in. Shadowheart used an Ice Knife hoping for a prone and getting it, and Paul tried to get in early but rolled last on his initiative. Finally, Gale landed a gnarly critical hit, Ray of Frost. Before the surprise Gith could act, Shadowheart got to let off a Radiant Dragon Breath and a Thorn Whip for a little more damage and control. Paul also got his turn, and he struck with lightning and his offhand twice. Sunny then started a new round and took out one of the Gith warriors, but an archer followed Sunny by taking out half of Paul's health and knocking him prone. Gale then killed a Jacques Najira, and then another Gith warrior disarmed and knocked Paul near to death. There were only 3 warriors left, but these guys were proving very troublesome. Sunny braced herself and started attacking the crossbow-wielding Gith. She did decent damage, but it only chipped away at their health, not making a meaningful difference yet. Gale was next, and he too missed an attack, so he resorted to Old Faithful Acid Splash, but couldn't get a kill. The melee Gith almost killed Shadowheart on their next turn, and so she had to spend her turn healing Paul up, drinking a potion, and buffing herself up with Shield of Faith to hopefully keep the party alive. On Sunny's turn, she used a True Strike and a Twin Cast Sunfletch Strike to deal good damage to 2 Gith, but still didn't get a kill. Gale finally killed the Longsword Gith using a Shocking Grasp, and then used a Sleep to guarantee a critical hit for somebody. Shadowheart waited and used a Cure Wounds to bring her health back up while the Gith took a nap though. Sunny moved in and tried her luck with the critical hit, but her point-blank Sunfletch Strike to the face didn't get the job done. The Gith made Sunny pay for it too with a critical hit in return, but it wasn't enough to deter the party. Within the same round, the party killed the remaining 2 Gith, and their freedom was just beyond the exit to the cave. Once out of the creche, the party climbed their way back up the cliffside to get out of dodge. Hopefully, the Githyanki won't be able to track the party beyond the mountain pass. Eventually, they did make it back to the big zip line and pulled the contraption back up the mountain. Sunny stopped off and delivered their rescued Githyanki egg to Lady Esther, who rewarded us with a little bit of gold. Sunny did not know how she felt about that, though. Yes, the Githyanki egg was saved from certain destruction, but did she just sell an unborn child to a science project? Or a sociology project? Surely that won't come back to bite her. Sunny took a moment to sell the rest of the party's loot from the creche that they didn't need or want, before moving on to look for the way to the Shadow-Cursed lands. Even though the Blood of Lathander didn't push out the shadows from Sunny's soul, maybe it would still provide some modicum of protection. Before the party reached what they suspected was the exit from the past, they almost ran face first into a horde of undead. They weren't spotted though and managed to sneak in time for Sunny to make a first strike, killing one of the ghouls. Shadowheart then used a Moonbeam, and Paul set up a Spike Growth to slow down what looked like a very dangerous and stinky Ghast. Gale repositioned out of the way so that Paul could run in to stab, and he did. Paul took out a ghoul while Shadowheart's Moonbeam took out another. Shadowheart then also ran in and pulled one of the Death Shepherds into a Moonbeam for a little damage. On Sunny's turn in the next round, she landed a nice critical hit on a Death Shepherd with a Zephyr Shot, and then Gale followed up with some more damage and control from a Ray of Frost on the Ghast, hopefully to keep the stinky Ghast out of reach of the party. Paul took a hit and then unleashed 4 attacks on one Death Shepherd, but the Death Shepherds had started resurrecting ghouls, and one landed a paralysis on Shadowheart, and that is not good at all. That is very dangerous. Sunny, though, kept up the pressure on the Death Shepherd with a Sharp Shot and a twin-casted Sunfletch Strike. She took one out, but the second one may just be able to resurrect him. Gale tried to prevent this with a Shocking Grasp and an Acid Splash, but Paul got the glory with an offhand attack to take out the second Shepherd. There will be no resurrection loop here. All that remained were some ghouls and a Ghast, and the fight was soon over, Gale getting the final hit with a bonus action Shocking Grasp. With the undead dealt with and the way through the pass clear now, the party ventured onward until they stumbled into an old man that Gale and Sunny both recognized immediately. Elminster, the famous wizard. He requested an audience with the party, and with Gale specifically, back at camp. Apparently, Mistra, the goddess of magic herself, and Gale's ex, sent this cheese-obsessed old man to deliver a message. And what was that message? Mistra wanted Gale to redeem himself with a heroic act of self-sacrifice. Mistra wanted Gale to detonate himself and his magical orb at the heart of the Absolute somewhere in the Shadow-Cursed lands. To aid in this, Elminster enchanted Gale's orb and gave him the ability to detonate it at will. What a horrible message to deliver, and maybe an even worse one to receive. And yet, Gale approached the message rather logically and coldly.
It is done. Of course. We offer the clearest solution to our problem. All I have to do is find the right place and time, close my eyes, and let go. Then the slate will be clean. Wrongs will be righted, the Absolute will be gone, and I along with it.
But Shadowheart was not so sure.
I can't believe Mistra actually expects Gale to just sacrifice himself like that. Seems like a waste of a fine mind.
And Sunny was inclined to agree. After a final rest in the mountain pass that night, the party buffed up and pushed on with heavy thoughts into the Shadow-Cursed lands. Gale is being sent to his death. Sunny is venturing to the very source of her own powers and curse. Whatever lay ahead in the cursed land cannot be good.
This is no typical gloom. You need to stay alert.
Last episode, Sunny, Paul, Shadowheart, and Gale made it out of the Githyanki crash and through the mountain pass. They ignored Vlaakith's orders to kill their dream visitor Guardian, potentially sold an onboard Githyanki to a science fair, and found out that Mystra wants Gale to go boom and detonate himself at the heart of the Absolute to regain Mystra's favor. What a heavy task Gale has to think about, but Sunny and the party have to think about it too. Unless Gale fights his way to the heart of the Absolute without their help, they're going to be right there with him when he goes boom. They'll all die, and that seems just a little unfair to them. Sunny's going to be thinking about this for quite some time, but only in the back of her mind because she has her own problems. The party has arrived in the Shadow Curse lands, the very source of Sunny's own magical powers and curse. The powers that haunt her soul that even the blood of Lathander couldn't wipe away. Can Sunny resist the powers of the dark? Can she and the party stop the Absolute where their army gathers? Let's find out. The goblin that greeted us in the dark with fear in her eyes told us to grab some torches, so Paul and Gale obliged. Sunny had her hand of fire, and Shadowheart is cloaked in light from her starry druid powers normally, so they weren't worried about it. Not even 100 steps into the region though, and the party found themselves in a fight with undead and shadows, much like the ones that came out of the dark book that Sunny destroyed back in the Blighted Village. Sunny, Paul, and Gale took their turns firing off damage while the shadows attacked a party of absolutists. Shadowheart took a shadow out in just one sacred flame, and then it was the party's turn again. Paul moved in to attack the Wraith, a deeper, darker shadow, and then Sunny missed what would have been a juicy Sunflesh strike. Gale threw out his trusty acid and killed an absolutist while damaging two shadows. Shadowheart hucked the guiding bolt out, but only did some chip damage. Turns out the Wraith is not vulnerable to radiant damage. Over the next 2 rounds, the party continued to throw out damage while the absolutists took the hits, and the first fight in the Shadow Curse land was over. The battle granted enough experience for everyone to hit level 6. Sunny took her 6th level of Shadow Sorcerer and felt something new unlock now that she was in the Shadow Curse. She felt like she would be able to conjure living shadows to fight on her behalf. For the first time, she was a little interested in her own shadowy powers, but she was still very wary of them. The only problem was that in the Cursed Land, she might not be able to resist the temptation to use these powers. Sunny also learned a new spell, Grant Flight, which would give her the ability to fly all day if she chose to concentrate on it. Shadowheart continued on as a Stars Druid for her 6th level and learned several new level 3 spells. Of these new spells, she prepared Sleet Storm to freeze a huge zone and lock down an area. Paul hit level 6 in Ranger, earning a 2nd Ranger's training from his travels. He took Protector, which gives him the ability to Warding Bond an ally once per long rest without using a spell slot, and the ability to cast Sanctuary without a spell slot once per short rest. This may make him much better at keeping himself and the party alive. Paul also received the new Natural Explorer passive, which he took Wasteland Forager. He's grown to enjoy good berries, so each night he goes on a hunt to find some, and he always does. Finally, he replaced his Entangle spell that he already knew with Cure Wounds so that he can really heal himself up when needed. He tends to get clobbered quite often. Finally, Gale took a 5th level of Wizard, learning 2 new spells, Counterspell and Fear. Counterspell is obviously so strong, letting him stop enemy spellcasters from acting, but Fear is incredibly powerful too, as the party found out firsthand when that Gith almost took the party out with just 1 cast. After taking their levels, the party moved deeper into the Cursed Valley, avoiding a group of absolutists along the way. Shadowheart also noticed something. She seems to be immune to the powers of the Shadow Curse. She thinks her goddess Shar is protecting her. But given she is a starry form druid, Sunny suspects it may be someone else. Shar isn't known to protect anyone, even her most devout followers. A little further, Sunny and the companions happened upon a house when they heard the absolutists coming with some real ugly man-spider looking thing. Sunny saw the spider kill one of the goblins in his own party, so she directed everyone to slink away into the shadows while they just waited and watched from a distance. Once the party of absolutists was gone, the companions went to investigate some sounds they heard in the distance and found a certified horde of undead. Even the plants were undead. The entire party rolled to go basically first in the initiative order, and Sunny started things off with the flashbang. She used a once per long rest sunbeam from the blood of Lathander that she had equipped for a bunch of damage on 5 different enemies. She managed to take out 2 undead plants to let the whole party take their turns immediately as well. Sunny then used a sharp shot to take down a 3rd enemy. Not bad for a first turn. Gale went next, coughing out an acid splash for a solid 30 damage, and then Paul finished off the last undead tree. Shadowheart then summoned a moonbeam for some more damage, but lost concentration on it shortly after when she took a big critical hit. It was soon the party's turn again. Gale used a shocking grasp and acid splash, and Paul followed up with 3 attacks to a ghoul medic. He then used an ice knife to hopefully knock some melee enemies prone when they approached the party. Sunny was next, and she used a twin cast Sunfledge Strike to place radiating orbs on a couple of enemies, and then the temptation took her. She summoned a Hound of Ill Omen, a puppy made of pure shadow, to fight for her. Luckily, the dog wasn't hostile. We'll see what it can do soon. Shadowheart then took her turn and fell prone. Then she was almost killed by undead archers. Luckily, they didn't deal quite enough damage, and it was the party's turn once more. Sunny went first and dealt solid damage with her usual combination. Then Gale followed up with 2 kills, while Paul played the healer this time and used a level 2 Cure Wounds on Shadowheart, but it rolled low and wasn't very successful. Shadowheart then healed herself with a level 3 Cure Wounds. After the enemies took their shots, it was Nimbus's turn, which is what felt like the name of the dog to Sunny. He landed a bite on a ghoul, which applied an Omen of Acid. If that ghoul takes acid damage, Sunny will regain a sorcery point. And that's exactly what happened. Gale used Acid Splash, and Sunny got her own power back. With just 2 enemies left, the party cleaned up the final undead, and it was actually Nimbus who got the final blow. Not bad for the new Shadow Dog. After the battle and the loot, Sunny led everyone along the river, and Paul smelled a trap. There was an ambush of some measle creatures, so Sunny flipped the script and surprised them with the sneaky bolt of light from her bow. Everyone else then took their turns dealing damage, even Nimbus. The measles were surprised, but they had an initiative advantage, so Paul sprinted into battle trying to get their attention. One, however, grabbed Shadowheart with a garroting attack and teleported away into the darkness with her. The same happened to Paul, but without the teleport. Gale tried to free Shadowheart, but couldn't see well enough in the dark until Shadowheart lit herself up with a starry form. Sunny moved back into view of the measles and scored a very solid critical hit and then a very airy critical miss on one measle. Nimbus landed another bite and an Omen of Acid for Gale to take advantage of, and Paul landed a lightning strike on the measle, holding him in place. It wasn't long before these pests of darkness were dealt with. The companions looted the bodies and a treasure they seemed to be guarding or using as bait. Shadowheart shadow stepped to the chest and looted it, finding a statue of Selûne and a pair of gloves that would improve her ability to apply radiating orbs should she choose to use them. She wasn't very happy about the statue, though. Adventuring farther, the companions found themselves soon staring at a large, well-lit bubble of hope, and then at the grisly scene of dead tiefling refugees. Bummer. They didn't all make it to the bubble in the distance, but I hope some did. With a heavy spirit, Sunny and the party moved on and found a bridge leading to the light. Across the bridge, a suspicious and aggressive, but not openly hostile human fighter approached and led us to meet the presumed leader, Jaheira. Jaheira. That name was familiar to Sunny, and the memory became clear when she used vines to entangle our feet. Jaheira was the High Harper, a legendary hero in Baldur's Gate. Sunny asked for a chance to earn Jaheira's trust, but when she pulled out a parasite in a bottle, the trust was bound to be broken. Except, the tiefling child mole came running to our rescue and vouched for us as the party that saved the tieflings at the Grove. With a small sort of trust established, we pushed for more by showing Jaheira the artifact which protects us from the Absolute's influence. That should be enough to get us passage inside. After Jaheira let us in, Sunny and the party started by scouting the place out and checking for merchants. Though they only just arrived in the lands, they're going to need supplies to survive here until they can take out whatever threats lay at Moonrise Towers. Sunny found and shopped with Quartermaster Tali, a Harper merchant. Sunny sold some loot and bought a few things like a scimitar +2 for Paul's offhand weapon and the Yuan-Ti's scale mail to give Paul 2 extra armor class thanks to the uncapped dexterity modifier bonus from the armor. Pretty much out of money now, though, Sunny and the party went and found Damon, the tiefling refugee smith from the Grove. He had some interesting equipment for sale as well, but the most interesting is that he asked us to find some rare metal out in the shadows. If we can bring it to him, he will make us something really cool. Maybe you've got a deal, Damon. Before the party went inside, they decided to scout around some more and see what outside of the main camp looked like. The bubble of light didn't extend very far, and so they soon found themselves sneaking up on a group of undead once again, and one really creepy looking puppeteer. As usual, Sunny played the aggressor and surprised the enemies with a Sunfletch Strike and a Sharp Shot. Shadowheart then jumped in with her new spell and used a big Sleet Storm to slow down the enemies and hope for some prones. Paul then used a ranged Ensnaring Strike to lock the puppeteer down, and Gale used an Acid Splash. Shadowheart somehow had a second action to use, so she ended up using a Starry Map for a Guiding Bolt while the surprised round finished up. Sunny and Gale were up next, sending out their damage. Sunny didn't think about it and dipped her bow in fire, which melted the ice, but luckily Gale refroze it with a Ray of Frost. With the amount of control that the Sleet Storm and Ensnaring Strike gave the party, it was soon their turn again, but the ice melted briefly and the puppeteer broke free. Luckily, he missed his attack, and Paul was able to get the kill shortly after. The enemies had a nice amount of health, so it took a few rounds, but soon everything was dead once again without much fanfare. The most damage anyone took was Nimbus, and even he didn't die. With the threat to the camp dealt with, the party continued their exploration, checking out the docks underneath the tavern after a quick short rest. It appeared to be a jail in here, probably for the drunks or something back in the day, but Sunny found a broken wall behind some boxes that she punched through with her bow. Gale knocked on a locked door, and behind it the party found a large cellar with some loot and the creeping shadow curse within. The loot was worth the hit from the trap though, the coruscation ring, which would add +2 radiant damage if the enemy was illuminated. Sunny swapped that on instead of the strange conduit ring, and then continued exploring until they wandered into a mean-locked lair. These gross and terrifying fey creatures could not be allowed to exist right under the tavern, and maybe the only safe place in the entire Shadow-Cursed lands. Sunny tried to set up for a surprise, but Nimbus ran into view and alerted the Meanlocks. Not good. Soon, the entire party was locked in combat. Sunny wanted as much damage as she could get, so she concentrated on the Enlarge spell and attacked for almost 20 damage. The Coruscation Ring didn't activate though, which was a little odd. Shadowheart and Gale were both frightened and unable to move, so Shadowheart used a Moonbeam and Radiant Dragon Breath to make the Meanlocks less accurate with Radiating Orb. Meanwhile, Gale did his old Acid Splash routine for that guaranteed damage. Nimbus jumped down from the tree root and almost took out a Meanlock, and another creature ran through Shadowheart's Moonbeam for a little bit of chip damage. It was Sunny's turn again, and she let off a couple of attacks for a ton of damage. A few Meanlocks missed their attacks, and Paul started racking up his damage numbers with 4 attacks. Gale tried a trick out of the Fey playbook with a Fear spell that went really well, scaring off several Meanlocks, and Shadowheart continued with her radiant damage and 2 missed attacks. Unfortunately, Sunny was frightened now and had disadvantage, but she still managed to deal some damage by setting up a fire surface with an Alchemist's Fire. It got worse though when Shadowheart ended up paralyzed after taking a hit, but Paul saved her with his new Sanctuary spell and a kill on one Meanlock. On Gale's turn, he used a well-placed Acid Splash to avoid hitting Shadowheart, but didn't manage to get the kill. From her high ground, Sunny used a True Strike trying to get a kill, but missed it by 2 points of damage. Paul came in clutch though, almost killing one Meanlock and then actually killing another with an opportunity attack. Gale then scored a kill with a Firebolt, and by the end of the next round, the Meanlocks were all down for the count. It turned out that where the Meanlocks were hiding though was a hidden Selûnite shrine, and not as much loot as Sunny had hoped for, even though the Harpers clearly haven't been down here. With the scouting complete, the party made their way back outside and around to the front doors of the tavern to meet with Jaheira and find out whatever comes next. The Shadow-Cursed lands have already spawned new powers in Sunny, and she is a little afraid of them, though the Shadow Pup seems pretty amenable for now. She still doesn't trust it though. On top of the internal worries, this place seems as violent as it is cursed, with threats lurking around almost every corner. The party is gonna have to be very careful. Last episode, Sunny, Paul, and the gang made their way into the Shadow Curse for the first time and managed to find Last Light Inn, a tavernous beacon of light and hope in the Shadow-Cursed lands. At Last Light, the party found some of the Tiefling refugees they had already saved, and a bunch of Harpers, including the High Harper herself, the famous Jaheira. After being allowed entrance to the camp, the party scouted around, clearing out threats lurking in the dark, but the party is no closer to removing the worms from their heads than the days before. Where is Moonrise Towers? Is Jaheira gonna trust us if she finds out that Sunny has the Shadow Curse alive within herself? Is Sunny going to be overtaken by the power of the curse? Let's find out. First things first, after checking Last Light's perimeter and cellar, Sunny went inside to have a drink with Jaheira, hoping to set her at ease about everything. And what did Jaheira do? She tried to and succeeded in drugging us, but not before we noticed. We used that to our advantage to earn her trust, knowingly drinking the truth serum. With the truth serum in our system, we told Jaheira the truth that the parasite had not corrupted us even a little. In exchange for that truth, Jaheira lore dumped about her old enemy.
General Gadrick Thorm.
Apparently he's immortal, so we need to figure out how to make him mortal again by infiltrating Moonrise and finding the source of his powers. Jaheira told us of a cleric of Selûne who could protect us from the lighter shadows, but with Sunny's burning hand keeping some of her own shadows back, Shadowheart's starry form casting light, and a couple of torches, we weren't worried about a blessing of Selûne, so we didn't go meet the cleric. After speaking with Jaheira, Sunny met with Alfira and heard a grisly story about how the refugees ended up here at Last Light. Apparently, some of the tieflings ended up dead and others captured. Alfira asked us to rescue those stuck at Moonrise, and Sunny agreed to do so. Outside of the tavern, Sunny met up with a hunting party on the bridge out of the light. They were hunting a drider with a lantern that would grant anyone in its light safe passage through the shadows. Maybe this would be the protection that Sunny would need from her own shadows, but just as important, it would be the party's ticket to Moonrise and the rest of the land. Unfortunately, that drider passed by a while ago, and the hunting party wasn't going to give chase. It is all up to us.
Even in deepest darkness, you will shine.
Thanks for the vote of confidence, though, Branthos. On the hunt for the Moon Lantern now, the party set out exploring in the darkness and lighting fires wherever possible. Up a large hill, the party stumbled onto an entrance to the Underdark and then into a kingdom of wolves. Sunny led off the fight with several Sunflesh strikes until the wolves finally noticed. The companions then took their turns dealing damage, but Paul set up a spike growth to slow their movement to a crawl. It was Shadowheart who landed the first kill of the battle, though, with some radiant damage. The Werewolf King then charged in and set both Shadowheart and Paul running and fearful, but not before taking a few hard-hitting opportunity attacks. Paul ran straight into the Shadow Curse, out of Sunny's light, and suddenly the fight wasn't looking as easy. On the next round, Gale was the only party member unafraid, but he did manage to kill the Werewolf King with 2 cantrips. From there, once the party wasn't fearful, it was easy pickings to finish out the fight. The companions did take a beating, but nothing a short rest couldn't fix up. Seeing how that way was a dead end, the party pressed back down the hill and up another until they spotted a giant shambling mound. An undead plant being that looked absolutely terrifying, so Sunny led everyone away back toward where they first saw that menace, Drider Man. The party went up the hill and across the bridge hoping to find the Drider, but only finding where the convoy probably came from.
Cages.
Back down the hill and past the large ruined house though, Sunny found her target. The Drider and a party of goblins were hanging out just outside the deep shadows, maybe taking their own short rest. Sunny enlarged herself in the shadows and then shot off a sharp shot and Sunfledge strike without being noticed. Shadowheart got a moonbeam out too, but Paul's spike growth finally tipped off the whole enemy party that something was wrong. Before they could spot him, Gale coughed out an acid splash and took out a goblin. Then we noticed something odd. There was an unexpected enemy, the Eternal Duelist with a unique passive, Cheater's Fate, which would deal 48 psychic damage if anyone does anything to him while he isn't dueling them. We figured that would only happen if he challenged someone already, so Shadowheart let a Radiant Dragon Breath rip and was immediately hit for 56 psychic damage in retaliation from the Eternal Duelist. Cheater's Fate indeed, you filthy duelist. With Shadowheart downed from just one bonus action, Paul saved the damsel in distress with a Sanctuary while Gale dropped a big potion for Shadowheart and broke it open for a heal with a shocking grasp. Shadowheart then healed up more and got into melee distance on Karnus. Next, it was Sunny and Nimbus's turn, so Nimbus started with an attack on the duelist and took some psychic damage in retaliation. Sunny then shot an arrow at an enemy wizard, and next it was their turn. Karnus started by attacking and killing Nimbus, but not before Nimbus could splinter off into his second dog. The problem? The duelist then challenged Nimbus's splinter to a duel and almost killed it with just that challenge. Gale was next, and he tried a fear spell on Karnus, but the Drider made his save. So he used a Crown of Madness to turn an enemy hostile against his friends. Shadowheart healed herself up some more with a Cure Wounds and then shielded herself and Gale. Paul ran into melee distance with Karnus and managed to hit him 4 times for 60 damage which was very nice on the Menace. Sunny followed up with a True Strike, Brace, and Sunflesh Strike for a decent but not amazing 22 damage. After Sunny's turn, one of the Dreader's companions, who Gale had turned mad, attacked the Eternal Duelist like a filthy cheater and ended up dead from the retaliation damage. Karnas then multi-attacked the hell out of Paul, almost taking him down, but taking some Mage Slayer damage in the process. That cheating duelist then stabbed Paul to down him and then killed Nimbus's Splinter. And that is when the real trouble began. It was Gale and Shadowheart's turn next, so Gale did his usual routine and Shadowheart healed Paul up while he was still Sanctuary. Sunny tried to use the light to her advantage with the dancing light to give the Dreader disadvantage on his attacks, but it didn't seem to work. He took Paul back down with another multi-attack, and then the duelist took Gale down without actually challenging any new dueling opponent to fight him. By dropping a potion next to Gale, Shadowheart managed to heal herself and Gale quite a lot, but then Gale tried to hit the duelist with a shocking grasp, only for him to be resistant to the damage and to still deal the retaliation damage. This was going to be a battle of supplies and attrition, apparently. On her turn, Sunny had to let the shadows out once more to get an extra body on the field, so she summoned Nimbus into the light with a bonus action. She then hit Karnas with a radiant arrow, but he didn't take kindly to that and straight up killed Paul on his turn. Gale was Sanctuary, so he cast a False Life on himself for some damage reduction and extra health, and Shadowheart tried a Moonbeam on the duelist only to find that the retaliation damage was still active, so she canceled her concentration and sanctuaried herself with her last spell slot. Sunny then lost her own False Life to a cloud of daggers from the enemy wizard, so she used a mirror image to make the next 3 attacks hopefully miss before she retreated. Nimbus managed to kill that turn, and then the duelist splintered off another Shadow Pup. Karnas didn't do anything on his turn for some reason, and so it was the party's turn once more. Gale started the round's combat by trying to throw a potion of sleep at the human Eternal Duelist, only to get hit with 52 retaliation damage and go down immediately. And the duelist was immune to sleep, for some reason. Shadowheart healed Gale back up with a Cure Wounds and buffed everyone she could with a Shield of Faith once more, but it was clear the retaliation damage was going to be the worst of it. Gale chipped away at the Eternal Duelist with another Shocking Grasp, only to go down again, while Sunny wailed away at Karnas with her bow attacks and Nimbus, who tanked for the party. The duelist then killed Gale, and so it was up to the girls. Sunny shot an acid arrow next to Karnas, hoping for a little damage, and Shadowheart healed and buffed up again. Soon though, the duelist was on Sunny, and so Shadowheart whipped out a Scroll of Revivify to bring Gale back. Sunny drank an invisibility potion to get away from the duelist, and then finally managed to kill the menace, Driderman. All that remained was this prick, the duelist. Shadowheart used a scroll once more, this time on a minor elemental of fire named Azer. Sunny used her final spell slot on a False Life and buffed up with an elixir of the Colossus. Azer made an action and a bonus action to deal a little damage to the duelist and died for it. So Shadowheart sacrificed some health to throw a bomb at him. With the duelist resistant to all damage, Gale decided to just maximize an acid splash and go back down. Then Shadowheart sacrificed herself with a Radiant Dragon Breath for just a little more chip damage. Finally, the duelist had only 16 health left. Sunny used a Sharp Shot for 9 damage, and then a Potion of Invisibility to get advantage on a Sun-Fletched Strike. And the duelist died, while it knocked Sunny's health down to just 16. That was dangerously close to an irrecoverable fight. With the cheater dead, Sunny looted him and helped the wounded back up. She then looted the moon lantern and found a pixie within who asked to be freed from the lantern, and that gave Sunny an idea.
You must release me or I'll die.
Maybe if she released the pixie, she could strike a deal for protection from the shadow curse around them, and maybe from the shadow curse within.
Did me a good turn there, didn't you? What do I owe you?
Dolly the pixie agreed to the deal, and just like that, Sunny felt the pixie's light within and without. She could still feel the shadows lurking in the background of her soul, but somehow they didn't matter anymore. The light of Lathander couldn't reach her or protect her from the deepest shadows, and her burning hand only ever gave her mild comfort. But this was what she needed all along, and all she had to do was free a pixie from a torturous prison. This wasn't at all what she expected coming to the Shadow Curse lands, but she would take it. That night at camp, Sunny's best night of meditation ever was interrupted by her tiefling guardian, who told her they were close to the source of the Absolute's power. With the shadows of her own soul dealt with, Sunny was ready to devote all of her energy to the Absolute now. With renewed focus, she and the party set back out on the road, safe in the Pixie's blessing. Soon they made their way deeper into the Shadow Curse and toward Moonrise Towers. Last episode, Sunny and the companions found themselves in a fight for their lives, seeking out the Moon Lantern, an absolutist device for braving the deepest parts of the Shadow Curse. They had to fight Karnus, the Drider, and the Eternal Duelist for their prize, but when Sunny finally got her hands on it after a brutal battle, she found a pixie inside the lantern. In other words, she found a small fey creature with whom she could make a deal. She released the pixie for a little negotiating power, and then Dolly the pixie agreed to protect the party from the Shadow Curse. Little did Dolly know, that deal would also protect Sunny from her own curse, and though the shadows in her soul aren't gone, they no longer threaten to consume her. She finally feels free, but there's still the matter of the parasite and Ketheric Thorm. Can they find the source of the parasite's strange magical protection? Can they find the source of Ketheric's powers? Can they save their tiefling refugee friends trapped in Moonrise Towers? Let's find out. With the Pixie's blessing on the party, Sunny led everyone deeper into the Shadow Curse. Deeper than even her darkest shadows, but without harm. They made their way across a small bridge and around the base of a large building, finding some heavy locked doors that Gale promptly unlocked. In the locked room, Gale spotted a hidden doorway in a bookshelf, and Sunny found the hidden button to activate it. Behind that bookshelf, though, the party found themselves in a fight with an exiled Arbiter and some crazy-looking ghosts. The companions took turns dealing their damage and taking the Arbiter down to half health in just one turn. The fight wasn't really a threat at all, and as scary as the ghost things looked to Sunny and the party, they had to admit that they were insanely cool with their insane spinning attacks. These Reapers of Souls could do some very cool stuff. Back outside, the companions made their way closer to Moonrise Towers and found themselves at the edge of a massive battle between the shadow-cursed undead and zealots of the Absolute. They took a moment to steady themselves while the battle raged, and then Sunny jumped into initiative with a sharp shot. Shadowheart then used a moonbeam, completely unaware of the fact that Shar hates that spell and won't let it function this deep in the Shadow Curse. After everyone was in initiative, a giant Whomping Willow tried to and succeeded in clubbing the entire party, knocking 3 of us prone. Other undead then dashed into position to get ready for their next turn, and the party was up next. Gale didn't have an action, so Paul took a swipe at the tree to kill it, and then he started working on the undead grouped up in front of the party. Sunny did the same with a twin Sunfletch strike to bring a little light to this cursed place, but then she tried to replace the shadows with her own and summoned Nimbus, the shadow dog, safe with the Pixie's deal. About 7 total undead grouped up on the party the next round, so everyone kept chipping away. Paul and Sunny teamed up to take out 2 of them, while Gale and Shadowheart took out another one together. Over the next round, Paul took a few big hits, as did Shadowheart, but the party managed to stay alive. Sunny braced and then attacked the remaining giant cursed tree twice, only to hit once though. Gale used a Ray of Frost on a target that Nimbus had marked for cold damage so that Sunny would get her sorcery point back, and Shadowheart blasted the group with Radiant Breath before healing Paul and taking the potion herself. Paul used his bow to finally take out the final creeper, and then took 2 swings at another undead for a little more damage. Even with 7 enemies left, the party really didn't feel threatened anymore, so their next turns were a breeze, just throwing out damage and whittling the enemies down until they were no more. One highlight of the remaining rounds, though, was Nimbus facing off against the enemy's Shadow Mask and proving that Sunny's shadows were superior to the cursed darkness. Once the battle was over, the party looted the dead and made their way into the protected domain of Moonrise Towers. It appeared to be protected from the curse by a whole army of tortured pixies, which upset Sunny, but there was nothing she could do about it. At the entrance to Moonrise, a true soul greeted us with their mind, and Sunny played the part in order to gain safe passage inside. With her identity accepted as a true soul, Sunny went shopping with her privileges, selling a bunch of loot and picking up some new drip and a shield for Gale. Sunny also bought a fireball scroll for him so that he could learn a juicy new spell. Once she was satisfied with her shopping, she dismissed her burning hand and dropped the party outside while she turned into a cat to go explore and scout out the castle. She made her way through the main throne room on the bottom floor, completely uncared about. She then went upstairs and found some locked doors, so she lured some guards away from view and snuck all the way to the roof of the castle, where a horde of undead necromites were hanging out. While out of view of the necromites, Sunny quickly transformed back into herself, unlocked and then looted a chest for a ring that didn't really seem that useful. It was not worth the risk at all. After exploring, Sunny made her way back outside, picked up the party, and went to meet this Ketheric Thorm in the throne room.
You have seen what these creatures are capable of, and you have seen their inadequacies, isn't that so? What is your judgment?
The companions tried to keep quiet, but Ketheric asked us directly for our opinion. Sunny told the room the truth. These goblins were faithful. But one of the goblins proved otherwise. Despite the order to kill the goblins, Sunny let them go. There's little need to kill these cowards. Ignoring Zrel and her orders, Sunny and the party next made their way into the dungeons where she had not explored as a cat, hoping to find the tieflings that she promised to rescue. The party did find the prisoners, and after convincing them we're on their side, Leah told us that the gnomes next door have an escape planned, so we spoke to them next. They needed some tools or weapons to break down the walls at the back of their cages. The party scouted around a bit and found that there were only 2 guards, so they decided together to sneak a kill on them. Gale used a minor illusion to lure both the zealot and the cleric near the edge of the pit, where Sunny threw a void bulb, which sucked one of them to their death. Paul then threw another 2 bulbs to pull the zealot to his doom as well. Finally, Gale dashed into position and thunderwaved the scrying eye to get rid of the last witness. With the guards conveniently nowhere to be found, the party snuck into the warden's tower, ready for another fight. Sunny led with a sharp shot and suffered the consequences of 2 lightning arrows to the face because the warden was alert. Shadowheart healed Sunny up and failed to find the now invisible warden, so Gale dashed in and thunderwaved the scrying eye, hoping for another kill with a level 2 spell slot. But not getting it, so Sunny used a Sunfledge Strike to kill it. The warden soon reappeared downstairs, but facing the wrong direction, so Paul, who wasn't in initiative yet, snuck in and landed a huge critical hit. Gale tried to use a fear spell while ensnared, but the warden made her save. She also made her save against Shadowheart's hold person too, but it didn't matter. Paul was moving like lightning and killed her with 3 lightning strikes in a row. The ruckus of the fight, though, brought another guard running, so the party had to take him out, and then they finally took out the last scrying eye. Without any guards around, Sunny threw Wolburn's hammer through the bars and then used a couple of Zephyr shots to break down the wall at the back of the tieflings' cages. She then followed them through a roundabout way and met up with the prisoners at a hidden dock behind the cages. We told the gnomes and tieflings where to find safety at Last Light Inn before making our way back into Moonrise proper, hoping that no one yet knew that the dungeons had been breached. Thankfully, no one knew a thing. Exploring the castle further, Sunny ran across parasite-controlled gnolls and a tentacled hole that she, for some reason, shoved her hand into.
It's a trap!
Sunny managed to wriggle her hand free, but only with some ooze on it, and it was quite scary. The companions continued playing with fate, waiting for some guards to find the prisoners gone, by going upstairs to Zrel once more. Gale used a fog cloud, hoping to disguise his movements to unlock a door and slip inside, but the sudden appearance of the fog set everyone on edge and they became hostile instead. Very not good. We're at the heart of the castle. There were 2 scrying eyes ready to call for everyone's help, and when Gale tried to kill one with a thunder wave, he was counterspelled. Without any other options, Paul charged in and decided to go after the biggest threat in the room, Zrel. Sunny followed suit with a twin-fletched strike, knowing that if the party was going to come out of this fight positively, at least one of the big bads had to go down. Shadowheart was next, and she decided to blast 3 necromites with some radiant breath, but a guard downstairs heard it and joined the fight. She also used a moonbeam on Zrel, but it wasn't going to be enough to kill. Nimbus was the last member of the team to go, and Sunny had him try for just a little more damage on Zrel with some shadowy tendrils. And then it was everyone else's turn, and they let the party have it. Paul was down to just 5 health, Shadowheart, Sunny, and Nimbus were all at half health, only Gale kept most of his HP by the end of the round. Paul ate a good berry and took a shot at Zrel to kill her, and then threw a potion at himself to heal up more. Sunny granted herself flight with her last level 3 spell slot for the day, hoping to create a way out of the fight so that she could keep the party alive with Wither's help. She used her massive movement speed to fly all the way to the dungeons, hoping to find a way out from there. Meanwhile, everyone else in the party decided to go out swinging. Gale took out a scrying eye and hurt a zealot, while Shadowheart and Paul ate a fireball and logged to the face, taking them both down. Gale was soon knocked out too, and for some reason, even though Paul had killed Zrel in front of them, the Absolutists not only let the party live, They just locked them in the dungeons without paying attention to the fact that the warden was already dead. All Sunny had to do then was break them out, get their stuff back, and escape unnoticed. Easy peasy. But before that, killing Zrel had netted everyone in the party a level. Sunny found that her deal with Dolly had granted her a level of Archfey Warlock, giving her a Warlock spell slot, a spell that can frighten or charm enemies once per short rest, and some new cantrips and spells. For her spells, Sunny took Armor of Agathis and Protection from Evil and Good, netting her some good retaliation damage and the ability to keep herself and her party safe from evil, just like Dolly keeps Sunny safe from her own shadow curse. Netting her some good retaliation damage and the ability to keep herself and her party safe from evil, just like Dolly keeps Sunny safe from her own shadow curse. For her cantrips, Sunny took Booming Blade as a melee backup spell and Mage Hand for occasional utility. For Paul's level, he took his 7th level of Ranger, unlocking a new instinct spell in the form of a Cloud of Daggers variant, as well as a new Hunter Ranger feature called Multi-Attack Defense, which would make hitting him twice in a row a bit harder for enemies. Shadowheart took her 6th level of Stars Druid, unlocking the ability Cosmic Omen, which would let her use her reaction to affect enemy attack rolls and saving throws a few times per long rest. Finally, Gale took his 6th level of Illusion Wizard, unlocking the ability to see invisibility and to see in magical and non-magical darkness. He also learned 2 new spells, Lightning Bolt and Slow for a bit more damage and control, respectively. With everyone leveled up, Sunny went and found the lever to open her prisoner companion's cell gate. Then they found their equipment upstairs in the evidence chest and re-geared themselves. After a short rest, the party ate some good berries to heal up and then snuck out of the tower where apparently the guards did not know that we were supposed to be in prison. That didn't stop the party from taking a couple of them down on their way out, though. Anything to soften up this tower of goons before we eventually have to assault it is probably a good thing. Soon, our heroes made it back to Last Light Inn and checked in with the real rescued prisoners. Lacrissa and Alfira flirted a little and then gave us some nice, but ugly rewards. And of course, Roland yelled at his siblings, but he calmed down and gave us a nice stack of gold too.
I hope it helps.
Finally,
we reported back to Jaheira the news from Moonrise that Ketheric is indeed still immortal, and we have no idea why. We're gonna have to head back out into the shadows another day to find out.
You survived the encounter at least.
Last episode, Sunny the Shadow Sorcerer and her companions infiltrated that den of evil, Moonrise Towers. Inside, they found the immortal Ketheric Thorm, they rescued some prisoners, and they killed the general's apparent second in command after upsetting basically everyone. With that bridge burned, the party took a long hike back to Last Light Inn where they delivered the news about the prisoners and Ketheric's immortality to Jaheira. With nothing else to report, the party packed it in for a night of rest. Can the companions find Ketheric's source of immortality out there in the Shadow Curse without stepping foot back in Moonrise? Let's find out. That night at camp, Gale invited Sunny to a night under the stars on the edge of the Shadow Curse. Gale had apparently summoned this beautiful view. He waxed poetically to Sunny with a little flirty edge, but ultimately he wanted a friend to contemplate his own death with.
This may be my last night alive. Stay with me, will you? I don't want to think of it anymore, but I don't want to be alone either.
Sunny stayed with her friend. He needed it. In the morning, the companions completed their morning rituals and then set out into the darkness once more. They headed south and then back across the bridge into the deepest Shadow Curse, still protected by the Pixie's blessing. Paul led the way for once into the Mason's Guild and straight into an undead trap. He paid for it though by taking 4 shots from the skeletal archers straight off the bat. Paul clambered his way up onto the roof and tried to use a cloud of daggers, but was counterspelled. Gale then tried to use an ice knife on another wizard, but he too was counterspelled. Shadowheart moved out of the silence bubble and tried a moonbeam, only for it to immediately be cancelled out by Shar without her realizing why or how. Next, Nimbus dashed into place and Sunny used a sharp shot and Zephyr shot to kill one wizard and damage another. On the next round, it was Nimbus who took the archer's damage, almost dying to the arrows, and he did go down on the next round. Ultimately though, this fight was not a threat to the party, just a nuisance. After a few rounds of chipping away, the party killed the final undead, and only Paul and Shadowheart had taken any real damage. Sunny and Gale even still had their false lives. After the small skirmish, Sunny took the lead once more and the party ventured further into the Mason's Guild where they found a secret passageway with a bunch of shadows lurking at the end. This one wraith did not seem bothered by Sunny shooting it over and over, but as soon as she moved closer, the whole room was upset. With the wraith, the more powerful shadow, already dead, it didn't take long to dispatch the rest of the shadows. The reward for these 2 little escapades was a useful but very ugly helmet of arcane acuity. No one was bold enough to wear the ugly thing, so it just kind of hung out in Sunny's backpack. Back outside, the party continued to explore the Shadow Curse and soon found themselves in a graveyard guarded by the least expected enemy to find in this curse, an acidic skeletal dragon. After examining the dragon, Paul started the fight with a cloud of daggers, which did not trigger his legendary action. Shadowheart tried her moonbeam once again, still not realizing how much Shar hated that. The dragon then conjured and spat acid at Shadowheart, dealing a bit of damage. Sunny then used her damage, which triggered the legendary action, and she too was acid blasted. Paul passed his turn, and Shadowheart this time used a level 3 moonbeam, which Shar again forced her to drop concentration on. Shadowheart and Gale took some acid damage, and then it was Sunny's turn once more. She landed 2 critical hits in a row and then used Blink to keep herself safe at the end of her turns. On Gale's turn, he used True Strike and managed to land a 3rd critical hit in a row for the party, and Paul was inspired, so he followed up with a critical hit of his own, and then a critical miss, which if we're counting is 5 criticals in a row. There goes the party's luck for the next 10 day. Shadowheart spent her turn healing up, and then the dragon let some more acid loose. Sunny landed 2 more attacks, Gale landed a maximized firebolt, and finally lost his false life. And Shadowheart landed the killing blow with a thorn whip. While not nearly as dangerous as it first appeared, that was a wild battle. Just a little beyond the dragon, though, Sunny ran face first into perhaps an even bigger threat. A rhyming devil. Raphael told us about some enemy devil in the mausoleum ahead, but I don't trust Raphael though, so the party's just gonna keep their eyes open. Before entering the mausoleum, Sunny had a chat with Shadowheart and asked her about her feelings about everything. She was not at all happy with Ketheric, who had spurned Shar, but she didn't really have much else to say. Inside the mausoleum, the party found a talking skeletal head that told us to leave. Pretty ominous. Scattered around the room, Sunny found and read a few journal pages of Ketheric Thorm, which is odd for him to leave around. Apparently he had raised a family member from the dead here, the woman depicted on this tomb presumably. She looked familiar, but Sunny couldn't quite place it. Around that tomb though, there were buttons that when pressed opened up a secret passageway to an elevator into a Sharan temple. In the temple, Shar herself maybe spoke to us and then blasted us away from a pedestal. Shadowheart thought aloud that we could use some darkness to make it through this puzzle, so Gale blasted some ice around the room to put the lights out. When Sunny put away the final light in her hand and Gale put away the blood of Lathander, the route to the pedestal became visible and Shadowheart made her way, welcomed by Shar. Beyond the large door that opened, the party found a tadpoled group of undead skeletons. Weird, but okay. They talked with us, and we insulted them, and they got so defensive that they woke up Shar's defenses. A bunch of umbral tremors appeared, and they were guarded by some undead Dark Justiciars. Sunny led by destroying a tremor with a single radiant shot from her bow, and everyone else followed up with their own damage on the Justiciars. Shadowheart managed to take one out, but the remaining tremors spawned more in at the end of the round. Sunny took out another tremor with another radiant shot, while the Justiciars piled on the skeletons and killed them. On Paul's turn, he destroyed the remaining tremor, while Gale used an acid splash at the 3 remaining undead. Soon, the battle was over. These guys weren't too much of a threat in small numbers like this. After dealing with this initial threat, the party went west and found a room with some ogres living their best life. The companions decided to just let them be. When they met another group of skeletons in the room though, more umbral tremors appeared with more Justiciars. Gale noticed a locked door though that was probably being guarded by these skeletons, so he used his faithful knock spell, an expeditious retreat, and a dash to open the door and let whoever controls these skeletons out into the real fight. Maybe they can fight their own battles then. What commenced from there was a very long and drawn-out battle in which the party mostly tried to be a nuisance to both sides. Everyone else in the room was an undead, and Sunny could not see herself working with the creepy short wizard or the giant flesh golem, so she just let the 2 sides duke it out while they took pot shots. Before long, the room was pretty overwhelmed with Dark Justiciars, so the party did help out with a couple of arrow shots and fireballs just to keep things from getting too out of hand. Eventually though, the wizard side of the battle was down to just him and his flesh golem, and the party hit their side one too many times when Sunny used a Zephyr shot on the golem. With everyone now hostile, the companions kept up the pressure. Gale unleashed yet another fireball, while the enemies just kept hitting each other. A couple of rounds later, the flesh golem clobbered Paul for 50 damage and then was taken out by the umbral form Giga Justiciar that had spawned in earlier. Gale then took that guy out, and all that remained were a few Justiciars and the enemy wizard. He seemed to be out of spell slots though, so he really wasn't a threat either. When all was said and done, the fight was over half an hour and not a single party member had truly been threatened by anything. After such a battle, the companions decided to take the rest of the day off and have a nice long rest. Sunny sold a bunch of loot to Volo, who was still hanging out at camp, and then she had another chat with Shadowheart, who was excited we found the Gauntlet of Shar. She was excited that such a massive and beautiful temple had been built in Shar's name. In the morning, we completed our morning rituals and explored the Gauntlet some more. A rat attacked Sunny though as she walked by for some reason, so she shot it. Weird. Not long after though, another rat attacked Sunny, so she just started blasting them whenever she saw them. She saw one scurry down a cliff, so the party followed and found themselves in combat with an entire army of rats that Paul pretty much solved with just a spike growth until one of the rats exploded and put him to sleep, breaking his concentration. It didn't matter though, because there were only a few rats left. The last rat, however, did not die. Instead, it turned into a crazed justiciar who had apparently survived for years, split into a ton of different rodents. This justiciar, Lyrthendor, seemed a little out of touch with reality though, constantly blinking as if he were fading away from this world. That didn't stop the party from killing him. Elsewhere, we found and cleared out a library of hostile justiciars without any fanfare, just a few rounds of damage back and forth until they were all dealt with. After searching around a bit, Sunny found the book to solve the riddle of the night, and of course, a new secret passage opened. Shadowheart led the way this time and found a sacred spear called the Spear of Night, and a very ugly justiciar helmet that just made her eyes look wild and crazed. Shadowheart would not be wearing that, nor would she be wearing the Dark Justiciar half-plate. It looked great, but the luminous armor was just more comfortable and more powerful. Still elsewhere in the temple, the party figured out that they would need a purple glowing gemstone to activate another elevator. While searching for one, we happened upon a group of devils. They snuck up to the group ready for a fight, but the devil, presumably the one that Raphael warned us about, wasn't ready for a fight. Instead, Yrgir, which was his name, was actually happy because some song stuck in his head was gone. We all know that feeling. Apparently, we had completed his contract by killing the last Dark Justiciar, Lyrthendor, earlier, but Raphael, who set Yrgir up, seemed only too pleased to take advantage of the fine print on the contract. Raphael took Yrgir away to torture him with some new contract, no doubt, and we were left to loot the place. Conveniently, we found one of those purple orbs at Yrgir's feet, ready for us to use. While searching the rest of Yrgir's domain though, we made our way down to a rather difficult to get to part of the temple, and Sunny ran face first into a manifestation of Shar. Paul rushed in to back up Sunny, and the two buffed up and dropped a spike growth because darkness blocked their ranged attacks. Shadowheart then shadow stepped into the fight to back up our friends, even against a manifestation of her Dark Lady. Curious. Sunny used a sharp shot and zephyr shot on the manifestation to avoid radiant retort, and Paul followed suit with a couple of arrows himself. Inside the room though, there were some umbral tremors spawning in more Dark Justiciars, so this was going to get messy quick if the party didn't start dishing some damage. Even with advantage, Sunny only had a 64% chance to hit, so she was not going to hit every attack. Shadowheart tried to help out with a fairy fire to give the party advantage, longer than True Strike would last, but only got a couple of targets. On the next round, Gale had flown into the fight and counterspelled Ashar's darkness to keep everyone from being blinded, which was a huge boon. Sunny then used a protection from evil and good on herself, followed by a rare longsword swing from Lorethion's Wrath to hit two Justiciars. She followed up with a sharp shot to kill one of them as well. Gale, on the other hand, let off a maximized lightning bolt to kill another Justiciar and get some decent damage on the manifestations. Shadowheart used a Wrathful Smite with a 35% chance to hit and managed it miraculously. On the enemy's turn though, one turned into her umbral form and hit Shadowheart with a gnarly critical hit, taking her down to less than half health in just one hit. Gale then counterspelled him with darkness, and Sunny used Blink to defend herself from the Justiciars that kept dashing into her melee distance. Shadowheart had just 13 health left, but she boldly used a Call Lightning anyway. She then drank one of the biggest potions the party had, which popped her back up to 44 health. For Gale's turn, he flew into position and lined up another huge lightning bolt and then flew back out to safety. On the enemy's turn, they all attacked Sunny and all missed thanks to a shield spell. Gale once again counterspelled while Paul mage slayed, and then it was the party's turn again. Each of them took turns dealing damage with whatever they had, but it was slow going. Before the party's next turn, though, one of the manifestations of Shar decided to let the companions have it with some sort of massive divine radiant damage that hit everyone. Paul was knocked all the way down. Sunny took half of her health as damage, and Gale was hit for 53 damage, and suddenly the fight, which was going well, did not feel like it anymore at all. Shadowheart healed Paul up with a Cure Wounds and used a couple of Thorn Whips for some damage, while Gale used his third Lightning Bolt of the battle to take out the manifestation that just about killed the entire party in one ability. Paul went back down before his turn was up again, so Sunny kept taking hits. Shadowheart healed Paul up once more and kept at it with Thorn Whips. Gale took out the melee Justiciars, but before the next turn, Shadowheart was downed by the remaining manifestation. Luckily, Gale's faithful Acid Splash managed to kill the final manifestation, and that meant the fight was pretty likely won. Paul was able to get Shadowheart up, while Gale and Sunny absorbed hits from the Justiciars with their shield spells. It took a little while longer, but the companions did manage to survive and take out the remaining enemies. What a brutal and unexpected battle. Behind such a battle, Sunny hoped she'd find something important, but instead it was just a broken mirror of loss. After 2 short rests, she led the party back to the pedestal that demanded the purple gem. What lies beyond that elevator? Shadowheart is convinced we're on the right path, but Sunny's not so sure. So before going deeper, she led everyone back outside and all the way back to Last Light Inn to sell their loot and reflect on their journey. Sunny had Damon make a sick new helmet for Shadowheart, picked up some fresh elixirs, and the party took a well-deserved long rest. Sunny spent the evening chatting with Shadowheart, and she told us about what a Dark Justiciar actually is and why she wants to become one. We also chatted about her interests outside of being a Sharan and a tadpole victim, and it turns out we actually have one of her favorite flowers with us already. How convenient. Apparently that night, Shadowheart mulled over our friendship and decided to share more with us. She used our tadpole connection to share with us how, as a child, she was saved from wolves in the wilderness by a group of Sharans. No wonder she's loyal to her Dark Lady and her people. After one more shopping trip for potions and elixirs, the companions completed their morning ritual and set back out for the mausoleum. Whatever was going to come next felt big and like there was going to be no time to waste. Last episode, Sunny, Paul, and their companions explored the Thorn Mausoleum and a hidden Temple of Shar deep beneath it. In the temple, they found and completed enough of the Gauntlet of Shar to open up a doorway into a final ritual site where Shadowheart is convinced she can become a Dark Justiciar. Curiously, though, Shadowheart jumped into battle against a manifestation of Shar herself to protect her friends. Is she really all that attached to her Dark Lady, then? After a night of rest back at Last Light Inn, the party is ready to set out for the temple through the shadows once more. On their way, the party ran into a pack of undead at the cursed town square. It was a small pack, so the companions quickly dispatched them with the usual suspects like Sunbled Strike, Lightning Strike, Acid Splash, and an assortment of radiant damage. As usual though, Paul took quite a beating as the party's resident tank. Shadowheart took quite a gnarly critical hit as well, but ultimately it was nothing a few good berries couldn't heal up. After healing up, the companions continued on their way to the mausoleum, but ran into Arabella of all people, the child Sunny had saved from the wrathful Kaga back at the Druid's Grove. She was somehow surviving out here without a pixie's blessing, or without Saluna's blessing, and she was displaying some powerful nature magic. She told us she ran from the ambush that took the tieflings, but that she had lost her parents somewhere in the dark, and she asked us to look for them. Sunny has a soft spot for the kid and is a little concerned that she may now have shadow magic within her, so she agreed to let Arabella stay at camp while the party looked for her parents. Unfortunately, Sunny soon found Arabella's parents in the care of a friendly enough but undead nurse, and her parents were dead. Suspecting that the nurse was the cause of their demise, the party killed Sister Lidwin and put her out of her undead half-life. Delivering the news to Arabella is going to suck. Killing Sister Lidwin granted Paul and Gale both enough experience to hit level 8. For Paul's level, he hit level 8 Ranger, granting him a new feat. He took Tough to make tanking all these hits that he takes much easier, granting him an additional 2 hit points per level and 1 flat damage reduction. For Gale's level, he hit 7th level in Wizard, granting him access to 4th level spells. For his spells, he took Conjure Minor Elemental and Phantasmal Killer for access to a summon and a nice psychic damage and control spell. A few steps away, the party found the undead doctor that Lidwin mentioned and a host of nurses with him. The doctor seemed to be torturing a living quote-unquote patient. The doctor wanted to talk and instruct us though. He told us about Shar's absence while he casually poked the eyes out of the man on the table. The doctor offered the same cure to us. Sunny tried to talk her way out of whatever the doctor wanted the nurses to do to her, but failed, and a battle with the undead animatronic doctor began. Sunny started by dipping her bow and buffing up with protection from evil and good. She also let off a sharp shot at one of the sisters. Paul was up next, and he used a spike growth on the middle of the room to hopefully slow the undead down. Gale then channeled the light from the blood of Lathander for a maximized sunbeam across the room, which dealt great damage and put the poor tortured man out of his misery, for better or worse. Shadowheart rounded out the party's turns by killing one sister with a thorn whip and another with a radiant breath and sacred flame. Unfortunately, Shadowheart was then yoinked into the spike growth, and then Paul was hit with a paralysis potion, which broke his concentration. On the party's turn, Sunny let her attacks rip and almost took out another sister, but Gale helped out and finished her off with some acid. The next round, Sunny took out the last remaining sister and continued protecting the party from evil and good. Paul's paralysis wore off, so he used his bow to attack the bad doctor and landed some nice hits. Gale and Shadowheart continued with the assault to limited success. The doctor raised one of the nurses back to life, which seemed a bit unfair, but the party got another round of damage in before she or he could do anything else. Gale used the round to summon a fiery minor elemental, but he failed to counterspell when he raised another nurse. Paul attacked Malice and triggered his legendary action, causing the nurses to wail, which made Sunny confused, preventing her from taking a turn that round. On Shadowheart's turn, she tried applying some radiating orbs to Malice and almost killed a sister. Meanwhile, Paul took a massive double hit from Malice, and Gale was paralyzed like Paul had been earlier. The elemental got his first turn and did a little bit of fire damage. Paul was up next, and he took out both sisters before turning his attention back to Malice and unleashing a huge critical hit. Sunny then let her arrows fly, and Shadowheart kept up the pressure with another Sacred Flame. On Malice's turn though, he hit Gale with a huge 76 damage critical hit. Almost, but not quite killing him thanks to the blood of Lathander bringing him back from the brink instantly. That let him react and counterspell Malice on his turn to prevent him from bringing any nurses back from the dead. Sunny then backed away and shot her shots. Shadowheart healed Gale up a bit and stacked some more radiating orbs on Malice, and Paul fired off 4 attacks and missed the kill by 7 HP. That was just enough for Gale to get his revenge and kill the bad doctor with a final shocking grasp. With the bad doctor's true death, Sunny and Shadowheart had earned enough experience to hit level 8 as well. Sunny took her final warlock level, granting her access to 2 invocations, a new spell, and a new feat for a pretty stacked level 8. For her spell, she took Fairy Fire, though she doubted she would ever use it. It just felt honoring to the pixie who had saved her from the shadow curse in her own soul. For her invocations, she took Fiendish Vigor and Armor of Shadows, which both felt like channeling the shadows within for some extra protection. Armor of Shadows grants free access to Mage Armor, and Fiendish Vigor means she can cast a version of False Life that always grants 7 temporary hit points and 2 flat damage reduction. For her feat, Sunny took Magic Initiate Ranger for an additional +1 to weapon attack rolls and -1 to her damage taken. As a boon, she also learned a level 1 Ranger spell, Healing Word, that she could cast once per short rest without a spell slot. Finally, she gained a few points of wisdom from her feat, setting her wisdom to a minimum of 13. For Shadowheart's level, she gained a 7th level of Circle of Stars Druid, granting her access to 4th level Druid spells. She prepared Ice Storm and Conjure Minor Elemental. After their battle with the undead doctor, the party finished their journey back to the Sharan Temple and Pool. Shadowheart led the way and took her final preparations with a Shield of Faith and an Invisible Prayer. She then walked into the pool, and darkness enveloped us all.
Lies Shar's domain. The shadow fell.
We awoke in the Shadowfell, the source of Sunny's curse. Not good. But it was too late now, so the party jumped their way down a series of cliffs until they found what they were looking for, the Night Song. Apparently, the Night Song was a woman, an Aasimar. Shadowheart spoke to the woman, but indicated she knew she was going to have to slay the Night Song if she would become a Dark Justiciar. Sunny had a feeling Shadowheart wouldn't go through with it though. Shadowheart had been too open, too helpful, and had even defended Sunny against a manifestation of Shar. Surely she wouldn't kill this woman. And she didn't. Shadowheart betrayed Shar, saved the Night Song, and was treated to an oddly quiet magical girl moment. Turns out, Sunny had fixed Shadowheart, maybe? With the moment past, the party fled from the Shadowfell as fast as they could, but Shadowheart seemed trapped and tortured, even if only briefly.
Perhaps I might have been dead.
After Shadowheart was released from her brief but intense torture at the hands of Shar, we saw the Night Song fly overhead towards Moonrise Towers. Shadowheart may have just betrayed Shar, but maybe even more importantly, she unleashed an immortal and vengeful daughter of a goddess on Ketheric Thorm, who is now mortal. If there were ever a time to attack, now would be it. So the party took off after the Moon Maiden's daughter. When they arrived at Moonrise, they found that Jaheira and the Harpers had already moved in and secured the perimeter of the castle. They were readying themselves for an all-out assault, and the party joined in. Before the assault, Sunny sold a bunch of loot to Quartermaster Tally and stocked up on a few potions and elixirs to be safe. The party then all took elixirs of their choice. Sunny enlarged herself and then began the assault with the Sunfletch Strike. The rest of the companions joined in with their damage. Thanks to their earlier mishaps at the towers, though, there weren't actually very many enemies in the turn order, but that didn't stop Paul from taking half of his monstrous health pool and damage from smites on the first round. However, because we had so many allies and so few enemies to deal with, the assault still took a while, but it proved relatively uneventful. Gale used a few counterspells to soften up the few casters, but all in, Moonrise was significantly weakened before beginning this fight, thanks to taking out the Warden and her guards in the dungeons, and Z'rell earlier. And the battle was over in just a few long rounds without any friendly casualties, I think. Sunny had imagined, though, that if the Warden or Z'rell had been in this fight, things would have gone very differently. But the assault wasn't over yet. Upstairs, there was still the Mistress of Souls and a couple of her Necromites. She proved quite a threat for a moment when she Misty stepped to the party and then blasted everyone with a fireball. But even after that massive fireball, she was no match for a fully loaded party. Paul started with 4 attacks that took her down over half of her health, while the rest of the party eliminated the Necromites. Before the Mistress could act again, Paul got to attack with another 3 attacks, and she went down. Before heading up to the roof, the party continued clearing out the castle, finding a girl's bedroom with a mimic chest that the companions quickly dispatched. In it, they found a powerful spine shutter amulet that Sunny equipped to potentially add reverberation to the targets of her Sunfletch Strike. Elsewhere in the castle, Sunny found an old diary entry from Ketheric's wife. Maybe that information could be used to persuade Ketheric to abandon his cause in her name. She really seemed to love him and want the best for him. Sunny also found a hidden book revealing the whole plot behind Ketheric and whoever else he's working with. There is a dominated Illithid Elderbrain somewhere under Ketheric's power, and that does not bode well at all. With their knowledge in hand, the party took a quick rest before whatever was to come next. Ketheric is not going to go down easy.
At the ready.
Last episode, Sunny and her party of companions fought an undead doctor, dipped their toes into Shar's own domain, the Shadowfell, and unleashed the vengeance of Seluna's daughter on Ketheric Thorm, rendering him mortal once more. The party assaulted Moonrise with Jaheira and her Harpers, cleared the lower levels of the tower, and now all that remains is the battle against Ketheric himself. Surely he can't stand against the combined might of a Shadow Sorcerer, a Malcop Ranger, a Twilight Druid, and a wizard with some wicked heartburn, can he? Let's find out. With the party mildly rested up and fully healed up, they marched up the stairs to confront Ketheric. They arrived at the same time as Aelin, somehow. She must be slow on those wings of hers, or she was a little nervous. Who knows? Sunny tried to convince Ketheric to surrender using the information from his wife's journal against him. For a moment, it seemed to work, but then Aelin rolled in and taunted Ketheric into fighting. Aelin, you had one job as executioner, and instead, this.
Isn't that right, General?
I was a fool to hesitate.
Unfortunately, the party rolled lower in initiative than hoped, allowing the Mistress of Souls on the roof to go first. She tried to fireball the party like the last mistress, but Gale was quick to react and counterspell. Ketheric was next and moved into position before the party began their combined initiative. Paul started out by attacking the mistress 4 times to take about half of her health. Gale's minor elemental also moved in and landed an attack. Next up was Shadowheart, who channeled the power of Selûne into a moonbeam on the mistress, then applied some radiating orbs to Ketheric and baited out his shield bash with a thorn whip. Gale used an acid splash on some necromites to soften them up, and then buffed himself up with protection from evil and good to prevent himself from being frightened and give enemies disadvantage. Sunny and Nimbus were last. They both attacked an Involucre unsuccessfully, so Sunny switched targets and applied more radiating orbs to Ketheric with a Sunfletch Strike. Aelin punted a skeleton off the roof and smacked another one with a big ol' smite. On the next round, the Mistress of Souls Misty stepped away while Paul stabbed her through the mist somehow, and she made the party pay for it with a fireball on Shadowheart and Aelin. Ketheric tried frightening everyone with a dreadful aspect, but only scared Paul. Gale then used Acid Splash, hoping to take out an Involucre, and chip away at Ketheric. Paul used his own protection from evil and good to remove his frighten, and then he started working on the General's undead dog. Shadowheart used a Radiant Breath to finish off the skeletal blob, and then used a Moonbeam on Ketheric this time. Sunny was up last in the party's turn, and she used a twin-casted Sunfletch Strike on the Mistress of Souls and Ketheric. The Mistress died, but she missed Ketheric. Over the next round, Shadowheart took several hits from Necromites and a legendary action from Ketheric. Ketheric then almost finished her off with 2 smites, taking her down. Gale decided it was a good time to channel some of Mistress' power for a maximized lightning bolt on a whole chain of enemies. It worked, but it just spawned in 4 Involucres, unfortunately. Paul used an instinctual cloud of daggers, hoping to deal some damage to Ketheric and take out an Involucre, and then healed Shadowheart up a bit by breaking a health potion for a huge 27 health. With Shadowheart back up, she used her Starry Dragon form again and then blasted 2 of the Involucres to destroy them. Finally, Sunny used True Strike on Ketheric for more accuracy, braced herself, and then fired a Sharp Shot and Sunfletch Strike, but only landed 1 of the hits. Ketheric then moved in on Aelin and smited her down, then landed a gnarly smite on Sunny as well. On the party's next turn though, Shadowheart breathed her Radiant Breath and Ketheric pulled out a new move. This giant tentacle arm he controlled with his hammer, which he promptly used to kidnap Aelin once more, probably to turn himself immortal again. Crap. The companions quickly cleaned up the remaining necromites and healed up before investigating the hole that the tentacle came from.
Impossibly wide. A single tentacle burrowed through stone.
We're close to the source of the infections.
Down in the hole, the party quickly ran into a group of little walking brains and immediately started clearing them out. Nothing in this forsaken place can be allowed to live. The party cleared out some 7 or 8 intellect devourers and some poor enslaved bugbear too. The fights were no threat though, but beyond a door, the party ran into a much more formidable set of foes, a massive group of undead. The party made the mistake of sneaking right as they opened the door and combat started, so they lost their actions entirely on their first turn, giving the undead a massive advantage. Luckily, the enemies only spent their turns running into position. On the second round, Gale started with some acid splash damage and a shocking grasp, but then the party followed up with damage of their own. Shadowheart in particular used a giant level 4 Ice Storm spell to make difficult terrain and deal a bunch of damage at the same time. On the next round, Gale used a lightning bolt on a giant line of enemies, and over the next couple of rounds, the party used whatever they could to deal damage and stop the undead from getting too close. Paul's spike growth put in a lot of work, and before long, the undead were dead once again. Paul and Shadowheart took a few hits, but nothing serious. Beyond the room with the undead horde, Sunny found and solved this weird brain-neuron connection geometry puzzle, which turned out to unlock a door behind which was a cursed sword and a pair of gloves, none of which was too useful to the party. Elsewhere, the party found Zevlor in a pod, possibly to be turned into a mind flayer, so the party took a risk and let him out, but at the same time had to let out 4 fully grown mind flayers. As soon as they were released, they attacked. Paul started off with a protection from evil and good on himself and then started attacking. Sunny dipped her bow as usual and fired off 2 attacks on the same mind flayer, but it was only chip damage, no kills. One mind flayer then went in and tentacle whipped Shadowheart and stunned her, while Gale started attacking as well. The real trouble though started on the next mind flayer's turn when it flew into position and used a mind blast to stun both Sunny and Paul. Because of the stun, another mind flayer flew up to Sunny and tried to extract her brain, causing massive damage, but giving Sunny her next turn back. She started by downing the biggest health potion she had, healing her up to about half health, and then she gave herself a level 3 false life for a bunch of extra temporary hit points and a little damage reduction. Finally, she sharp shot a Mind Flayer. The next Mind Flayer smacked Shadowheart again for another 20 damage, and next it was Gale's turn. He used a protection from evil and good on himself, hoping it would make him safer, and then used a scroll of fear trying to control a couple of enemies. Half of the enemies in the cone failed their save, but unfortunately, there were still 2 Mind Flayers on the loose. The next Mind Flayer to go knocked Shadowheart down before she even got a turn in this battle. Luckily, Zevlor was coming out swinging and smited 2 little brains, and Paul took out one of the squids. Sunny was next, and she used her fire shield and provoked a couple of opportunity attacks, and then used a twinned Sunflesh Strike for some more damage. Another Mind Flayer used another Mind Blast and stunned Paul and Gale, so of course Paul had his brain extracted for a huge 114 damage critical hit, taking him down. The next Mind Flayer to go found an angle and used another Mind Blast to knock Gale down as well, and suddenly only Sunny remained standing. She was going to have to clutch this out with the help of Zevlor and the Flaming Fist, or all of the party's trials were going to be for nothing. The problem? There were still 3 Mind Flayers, 2 of which were at full health. Sunny started by using a healing word to get Paul back to his feet. Paul then downed a huge healing potion for 40 healing thanks to his periaptive wound closure. That would give them some wiggle room. He also used an expeditious retreat to get out of dodge in case things got worse. Sunny then used Grant Flight on herself to give herself some extra movement for the next 10 turns. She dropped a potion next to Shadowheart and shot it with a sharp shot to heal her up. She probably still wouldn't get a turn, but maybe she could buy the party some time. Sunny then used her own expeditious retreat and flew out of harm's way. A lucky critical miss against Shadowheart gave her her first turn of the entire battle. She used one of her bonus actions to heal with another potion, and then she shadow stepped to where Sunny and Paul were. The Mind Flayers moved in on Gale and ate his big wizard brain. Zevlor, though, stayed in the fight and smited one of the Mind Flayers for some decent damage. Paul used a cloud of daggers on the approaching brains and kept healing up, while Sunny used a Zephyr shot on a Mind Flayer and retreated once more. The Mind Flayers, though, seemed reluctant to leave their room, and one just passed their turn. Shadowheart used her turn to summon another body on the field, a fiery minor elemental. Zevlor kept slamming out his smites, and now things were looking much better. Paul moved in on his turn and used an ensnaring strike to lock one of the Mind Flayers down and landed a solid critical hit with an acid arrow. Sunny then flew to the doorway, dipped her bow, and used her sharp shot and an arrow at many targets for big damage on everything. Shadowheart took 1 Mind Flayer out with a moonbeam, and Zevlor finished off the final squid with his trusty crossbow. That was a truly terrifying fight. After the battle, we had a quick chat with Zevlor and brought him up to speed on what had happened since his abduction. Zevlor was repentant of his moment of weakness to the Absolute and vowed to go find any others in the Illithid colony that needed rescue. The companions decided to leave whatever was left in the colony for Zevlor to handle, and we went searching deeper. The party rested up and found a restoration pod which restored everyone's resources so that they would be ready for Ketheric when we found it. Gale also refreshed all of his buffs after being brought back with a Revivify scroll. Everyone who could summon something did as well. Sunny let the shadows out to play as Nimbus, and both Shadowheart and Gale had fiery elementals out. Sensing another bout with Ketheric ahead, the party took a platform to a lower level of the colony. Peeking through another sphincter door, the party witnessed what Sunny recognized as the Duke of Baldur's Gate become infected with a Mind Flayer parasite at the hands of 3 anime villains and the biggest intellect devourer she could imagine.
An elder brain.
2 of the villains gave Ketheric a pep talk and then left him to finish dealing with our party to retrieve our prism. Upon seeing the Elder Brain, though, Gale also reminded us of his cause and duty to Mystra: detonate his orb and defeat the Absolute. The only problem with that plan? Sunny was protected from her own shadow curse for the first time ever and had a new lease on life. Shadowheart had to find out what Nightsong knew about her, and Paul still wanted to give Leroican a piece of his mind for selling him to the Illithid. Sorry, Gale, you are not going to be exploding today. Unfortunately, that did mean the giant brain and 2 of the 3 villains teleported away, but the party still had a chance to take out Ketheric once and for all. With resolve in their hearts, the companions snuck into the Great Chamber with all of their summons, ready for another battle with the Oathbreaker. Sunny started out by scouting the room ahead as a sneaky little cat. She found a platform with 4 Necromites and stayed hidden beneath it while Azer followed her into position. The other Azer tried to scout out a platform with an Illithid on it, but couldn't make the jump, so Shadowheart exited her starry form hoping to shadow step, only to find the entire room was well lit, which felt like fake news. So instead, she turned into an owlbear and tried to make a surprisingly sneaky jump. Turns out, a giant owlbear isn't so sneaky, and she triggered combat to start. Or so she thought. It turned out that Azer, next to Sunny, was spotted by Ketheric, and that had started the combat. Somehow, that is much worse. The Azer was first up, so he started by breaking an involucre that Ketheric had summoned and then moving into position next to the skeletons. Since Shadowheart was still sneaking, she wasn't in initiative, and she took the opportunity to jump on the Illithid and knock it prone. Ketheric, though, took no damage, proving he was immortal once again. A sneaky Paul had also closed some distance and started attacking a group of intellect devourers near the imprisoned Aelin, which he noticed. Gale took his turn after a round of Necromite attacks, and he used a Ray of Frost on the Illithid, hoping to slow it down if it was able to get up. The other Azer, which was still sneaking, jumped up and landed a juicy critical hit, Searing Smite on the squid, as well for some great damage. Paul finished his turn attacking, but only killed one brain. And Sunny took her turn by enlarging herself and then shooting the squid twice, almost killing it. Shadowheart still had her turn though, and just barely managed to kill the Illithid with a big ol' claw swipe. Shadowheart then jumped to the platform with the Necromites and used her second bonus action for an additional jump, dealing some great damage. On the next round, Ketheric killed the Azer next to him, wasting a smite on the summon, and then it was the party's turn once more. Paul spent his turn healing and buffing Aelin up, preparing to free her on the next round. Sunny then twinned a Sunflesh Strike to take out 2 skeletal involucres. For Gale's turn, he simply summoned another Azer to distract Ketheric and waste his smites. Shadowheart spent her turn missing like normal, but ultimately killing 2 Necromites and healing up with a potion. For some reason, the little brain kitties all dashed after Gale though, and brought Nimbus into the fight, which Sunny had honestly forgotten about. Paul then helped Aelin up, buffed himself up with protection from evil and good, and started moving towards Ketheric, who was mortal once more. The rest of the round, the party spent setting up to get in Ketheric's face and take him down, mostly by killing the ads in the room. With Aelin active and in position now, Ketheric made a stupid move running past her and threw her moonbeam, and then taking a smiting opportunity attack from her for some solid damage. With that, it was the party's turn. Gale and Nimbus finished taking out the Intellect Devourers, while Shadowheart decided to enrage as her owlbear form and actually made Ketheric fearful so that he would run away. Turns out, he's afraid of giant bird bears. Except, he couldn't run away because Shadowheart knocked him prone and clobbered him with 2 claw attacks. Paul then moved in and let 4 attacks rip, but only landed 2. Sunny joined in on the assault, taking pot shots at Ketheric from afar. With all the ads dead and Ketheric afraid, Nimbus closed some distance while the rest of the party kept up the hurt on the villain. Shadowheart knocked him prone again and kept at it with a few more swipes, but it was Paul who got the final hit on Ketheric with 2 lightning strikes. Ketheric, though, didn't think those hits were so final. He prayed to his god of the dead, and well... That's not good. The party quickly regrouped, and Paul used his bonus action attack to try and provoke Merkel's legendary action, taking some damage in return. Gale tried and failed a spell, and Aelin landed a smite that did basically no damage. For some reason, Merkel couldn't decide what he wanted to do though, and kinda just passed his turn after summoning several Necromites. Merkel was just deciding so slowly that we actually managed to take a quick group photo during the battle. It's a pretty nice picture. After he passed his turn, Nimbus took his and landed a hit which provoked Merkel's legendary action. The joke is on him though, because Nimbus is 100% immune to necrotic damage. So he was only frightened, and the rest of the party was ready to let Merkel have it. Paul started off with a couple of lightning strikes, and then Sunny used an extended true strike for advantage for the next 4 turns. She then used another extended Sunflesh strike to apply some turns of Radiating Orb, hoping that Merkel would miss more often. Gale took his turn by trying another Phantasmal Killer, which landed this time, but didn't seem to do much to the God of Death for some reason. Owlbear Shadowheart did her thing, jumping around and smacking Merkel, and then it was Merkel's turn again. This time he swiped with his side, hitting and smiting Paul. Nimbus then landed another hit to provoke the legendary action, again taking 0 damage. Such a good boy little shadow pup. Azer took out a Skeletal Involucre, and the rest of the party kept their damage going. Paul missed his attack, but got to use his mobile feat to avoid an opportunity attack and heal up out of Merkel's aura. Sunny landed a very solid 32 damage critical hit on Merkel, followed by a quickened 22 damage critical hit. And finally, another 7 damage from a sharp shot for a total of 61 damage that round. Not bad. For Gale's turn, he set himself up to lightning bolt a bunch of skeletal blobs so they couldn't spawn adds, and Shadowheart tried to make Merkel fearful, unsuccessfully. Merkel had enough of Nimbus and smited the hell out of him, and Azer went down too. Unfortunate for Merkel, Sunny still had some sorcery points left and summoned Nimbus right back from the shadows where he started. She then attacked Merkel for some more damage and ate the necrotic legendary action for breakfast. Paul and Shadowheart spent their turns on more damage, but Shadowheart actually risked an opportunity attack and ended up eating it and losing her bear form. So she broke out the power of Solidal once more and used a moonbeam on Merkel before climbing off of his platform. After that round, Merkel was down to under half health and things seemed to be going pretty well. Merkel tried to kill Nimbus again, but failed and actually splintered him off into a second pup. Nimbus triggered the legendary action and freed Paul up to land a huge critical hit for 21 damage. Gale went next, still trying to clean up Skeletal Involucres, and then Sunny fired another couple pot shots at Ketheric. Shadowheart took out 2 Involucres and summoned another Azer just as a distraction, and on the next round, Merkel splintered off another piece of Nimbus and frightened him so that he couldn't trigger Merkel's action. That's unfortunate. Paul stepped up to the plate though and attacked, but somehow didn't trigger his action. Shadowheart went next, wasting a moonbeam on an immune Involucre and then finally transforming into a starry form. Gale ran back up the hill for another lightning bolt that was actually long enough to hit 2 Necromites and Merkel from a really long distance, which triggered the legendary action. Gale ended up frightened and hurt, but it was well worth the damage. With only 86 health left, Sunny landed another big critical hit. On Merkel's next turn, he attacked Paul, but seemed to be out of smites, so the damage wasn't too bad. But no matter, Paul attacked and ate the hit for the party once more. Though Gale was hurt and frightened, he knew his lightning bolt could still reach Merkel from his position, and he knew he had a duty to Mystra. If he couldn't blow himself up to destroy the Absolute, he could still defeat Ketheric and Merkel. He said a little prayer to Mystra, maximized his lightning bolt, and killed the God of Death himself. At his true defeat, Ketheric was forsaken by another god, this time Merkel, and his soul was burned from within. And Aelin defiled his corpse, like a good Selûnite paladin, I guess. After the defiling was complete, Sunny looted Ketheric and pulled an Infinity Stone from his armor. Sunny's Dream Visitor portaled out from the Astral Prism and exposited to us that the stones control the Netherese crown on top of the Elder Brain, which means the stones control the brain. She also told us that the other 2 villains are chosen of the God of Tyranny and the God of Murder, making our villains chosen of the Dead 3, the gods which took Jurgel's place when he retired, or whatever Jurgel did. Back up in the Moonrise throne room, Gale gushed about the crown and where he could find more information about it.
Sorceress Sundries.
Back at Loroican's tower. Paul was eager to get there too, so it would be no problem to stop off for a little information and maybe a little destruction when the party gets into town. Scattered around the room, Sunny and the companions made the rounds talking to Jaheira and inviting her to join the party's camp. It could be useful having a local legend with us in Baldur's Gate. Aelin was also there, apparently reuniting with her resurrected girlfriend, Isabel. Turns out Isabel was Ketheric's daughter all along, and that casket in the mausoleum really did look familiar. Isabel and Aelin also offered to join the camp. Unfortunately though, it wasn't all good news. Halsin had to stay behind in the Shadow Curse because though Sunny found a solution to her own curse, freeing Aelin and killing Ketheric apparently didn't clear the curse from the land entirely. That night at camp, the party rested from their battles. Shadowheart spoke with Aelin and learned that her parents are not just alive, but they may be the source of the torment from the incurable wound on Shadowheart's hand. They are linked to her somehow. And her new quest is to get back to Baldur's Gate and save them from the Sharans. Before setting out for Baldur's Gate and properly leaving the Shadow Curse behind, there was one last task. Sunny had to tell Arabella that her parents had died in the curse. And if it weren't for Withers, it would not have gone well. Arabella seems to share in the Shadow Curse just like Sunny does. At least in some small way. She's gonna have to find a way to cope with it just as Sunny did, or it will consume her.
You feel grief fade as if it were your own. There is a lightness in her now, veiling the power within, soothing it.
For the last time in this cursed land, the party performed their morning rituals and set out to find the road east to Baldur's Gate. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks to Kelbreaker and Nightingale the Excusers for the extra support. Until next time, I'll see you all in the next excuse.